Hey guys, how's everything going?
Hey, hey.
Great, thanks.
Uh, Whoever is already here, welcome to this monumentous occasion of all of our favorite person, artist, writer, comic book guru, one of my great friends, Mr. Mike Grell.
Woo, yeah.
Hey, Scott. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Mike, Jeff, great to see you.
Yeah, and also help to celebrate it, we've got Jeff Messer. If y'all have ever done any of the Kickstarter stuff or in the Mike Grell pages, Jeff's the one in charge of all that. And of course, the ever effervescent Michael Zapsik from Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash.
What's up, folks?
Hey.
Congratulations. 5-0, a big milestone. You don't look at
Yeah,
over 30.
when I started in this business, I didn't know people lived this long.
Well, we kind of start to talk about it beforehand, but I guess go ahead and fill everybody in on what led to this, the love of your life, the ever popular and great Mary.
She poked her head in here a little bit ago, didn't want to be on camera. So she's watching from the living room on her phone.
Uh, and anybody
But she's
who is
doing
also
great.
anybody who's also watching, please feel free to ask questions as we can get to them. We'll bring them up, and uh, Mike will be able to answer them. So kind of we can bring them up here. Christopher Hewitt says, "Happy anniversary, Mike." We've got Thomas Price saying hello. But yes, if you anybody else, if you've
Hey,
got
Thomas.
questions you'd like to ask, feel free and put it in the chat, and we will see what we
Yeah,
can do
you can
about
ask
getting any
me
questions
anything.
answered.
I've done more embarrassing things in public than you
I've
could possibly ask me.
I've seen them, but but by all means, Mike, this is your show. This is your anniversary. I'm going to shut up now. Take it away.
Take it away. Oh, okay. Thanks for being a great MC. This would not
What?
be happening without Scott. Scott Hoverman has been my buddy from the moment we met. Really, we're like identical twins, except that one of us is tall and the other one is really good looking. Yeah, we have this in common now.
Oh yeah.
See, Scott was my inspiration. Actually, Mary kept pointing out how good Scott looks with his head shaved. And so I figured I might as well do it. And we did it down in Biloxi at Three Alarm Comics 2 years ago for Mardi Gras,
Hmm.
a moment of insanity and great fun.
See what you got to
Um,
look forward when you come down here, Mike Zapsik. When you and Julia come down, just what you got to look forward to when you come to a Mardi Gras.
I get to have my head shaved. Are you kidding? Look at this beautiful hair. It may be gray, but damn, it's all mine. And there's
Incidentally, the
and
only
damn
place
your hair. And
the only
I speak for everyone in my age bracket, and those that are not. Jeff, whose hairline has stopped receding and begun retreating. Um, he's Jeff's a great guy.
it's doing the
Um,
Sherman's March to the Sea is what it's doing.
there you go. There you go. So okay, 50 years.
Well, now, first of all, let me plug something for Scott. The only
Sure.
place in the world where you can actually get purchase now uh, locks of Mike Grell's hair for $50 each is at Three Alarm Comics.
You
See,
too could
there was
clone
a
your own
scheme.
Mike Grell.
There was a scheme afoot. Mike just didn't know it.
We've kept it in the back. We're growing little. We have stem cells back in the back. So if you need a new kidney, you could grow it from Mike's stem cells. We're good to go.
We're working on a clone army of Mike Grells so that we can get like 10 books a month out.
Hey, I fought off a recommendation from a friend who thought it would be a really good idea for us to use AI to complete my drawings from rough sketches. That we could generate the intermediate drawings by AI. And I said, "Are you nuts? I'll die with my pencil in my hand. I'm
Amen.
strictly an analog guy."
Yeah.
and God bless you for it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well, Mike, just to let you know, I know we just kind of got started, but we've kind of invited a few other people to come in and be a part of this as well, which you didn't know about. One of them just popped in right now. So we're going to bring him in, and we kind of wanted to let you know how much you mean to a lot of us. So I'm going to bring in Mike right now.
East Coast Mike. There you go.
Gary.
Hey, how you doing, old timer?
Getting older by the day.
It beats
Looks
the
like-
alternative, man.
It looks like a hostage video. What's going on over there?
I have no idea. It's
No, that's a sex video.
I'm
Oh,
using my
even worse.
iPad out of convenience, and I haven't done that before with StreamYard, so I have to work this out with it. But eventually I'll get it right. Oh, look, there I am. Okay, that's about as
There
good
you
as
are.
it's- All right. So what I miss?
Not much. Not much. Just the usual BS
birthday.
between pals. Just BS between pals. But for anybody who's tuning in, Mike Gold has been one of my all-time best friends since I think the moment we met, like Scott. But we hit it off right from the go back in the early days. I think we met first at Chicago Comic-Con.
1976 at the
76.
Playboy Hotel.
Right. Playboy Club Hotel. It was interesting. I'd never seen a leather bedspread before. Okay, Naugahyde, but it had to be something that would be easy to clean off.
Well, Mike, we also have somebody else here that's wanting to come in, so let me bring it. Might as well be the more the merrier in here.
Oh my God, Ragnar! Hello, Ragnar!
Speaking of old friends,
This gentleman is William B. Guthrie, Professor William B. Guthrie, who I've known since not before dirt, but I think before concrete. We met in Idaho back in the early 1980s, and among other things, Bill is a professor of medieval literature who actually reads and understands ancient Greek, probably speaks it, but there's no ancient Greeks around, not since Anthony Quinn died. Among his other accomplishments, he has been editor at Soldier of Fortune magazine. And if that sounds weird, it is.
and presently,
Professor of medieval, he's taught English at University of Macau, right?
correct. Can you hear me? You can hear me.
You might want to turn your microphone down just a little bit because you're really, really loud.
That's my voice. Sorry.
Oh.
I don't know if I can turn my mic down or not. I will try to. Hang on. Is that a little easier?
Should be somewhere in your settings down there. You should be able to, if you hit settings and go to your microphone, you should be able to turn the volume down a little bit.
So Ragnar down there in the corner has more hair on his chin than I ever had on my head. And
That's okay. I'll just speak less. I'll just speak more quietly. Sorry, is that better or not?
Say it
We'll
again.
make it work.
Yeah, at least your chin whiskers had the decency to turn white.
All right, Mike, we have people wanting to come in like crazy, so I'm going to bow out to give up some other people some room. I'll still be here, but we have somebody else who wanted to say hello.
Okay, great. Hey, Steve. How goes it, man? We can't hear you. There you go.
The miracle of technology.
Got nothing.
Oh, he went out to come in again. Hang on.
All right, we'll remove Steve till he gets his microphone fixed, whatever he's got going on.
He's in some third world country somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
we know Steve is like as technologically backwards as I don't know. I got nothing at this point.
We are truly international here. Bill is in New Zealand, and Steve Scott is in Antwerp, Belgium, and I think he's waiting to come back to the United States.
All right, let me bring him back in, and I'm going to back out to give him a little bit more room here.
There you go. Try it now.
No, still no. No sound.
Do a little count. Very faint.
He's trapped in a well. What? Get Lassie.
Hey, Steve, if you can, just exit out and try to come back in. We could hear you to begin with, but something went out all of a sudden. Just exit out and you can come back in.
Write something on a piece of paper and hold it up to the camera.
There you go.
Regardless, Steve was my cohort and accomplice on Maggie the Cat and The Pilgrim, which was written by Mark Ryan, and Steve stepped in and helped out with the finishes on that issue that we were working on, and the work is just magnificent as always. You can tell I'm a fanboy when it comes to guys like Steve and a few others that I've worked with over the years. Steve is right there at the top.
All right, let's see if we can get him back in this time. Let's see what we got. No, we still got nothing.
Well, yeah, boy, he's trying. He's trying.
Oh, he's waving. Yeah, you have to plug it in, Steve.
There must be easier way. Right?
We can probably.
While we're waiting, wait, is he there? While we're waiting for that, let me throw a couple of messages out to people who couldn't be here tonight. Mike, I heard from Dan Jurgens, who sends his absolute very best and says he said a happy birthday, but I'm sure he meant happy anniversary. But I'm sure you'll take the birthday, right? Happy 50th birthday.
Yeah, my birthday was last week.
There you go.
Actually, 10 days ago.
So Dan Jurgens sends his best, and Paul Levitz also was trying to get in, but his phone won't let him. So he said, please give you his kindest regards.
Thanks, Paul. I really appreciate it. And Dan, buddy, it's so many years since you sent me that fan letter. You were 14 years old, and what are you now, like 86, 87? Something like that. You got to be younger than me. And that's just the way things work, unfortunately. Steve, you're down there in the corner. You still with us? Can you hear us? Wait a minute. I thought I heard you say no.
I don't know what's going on. We'll continue on. Sooner or later, we'll figure it out. But
right,
like I said, to begin with, Mike, this is about you. I'm sure everybody that's is watching and tuning in. We kind of like to know, the beginnings on up to now. What's going on? I know we have a few surprises for later on. So if anybody's watching, there's a few surprises that we're gonna get to before the end of the stream. But like I said, this is your show. This is your career, your legacy. So once again, I'll try take it away.
Steve. Well, it all started in a little 2,000-watt radio station outside. No, I lucked into comics the way nobody does. Nobody falls in as lucky as I was. I've told the story a million times, but since we're talking about how did you get in, how did it all start, I always wanted to be a lumberjack, just like my old man. And when I turned 16, he got me a job working in the woods. And as soon as I found out how hard he'd been working all those years, I knew there had to be an easier way to make a living. So I figured, hey, architect, because we had built a house, started by tearing down an old 1870s vintage saloon on Main Street in my hometown to get the lumber. And started when I was 8. We moved in when I was 14, and I still have the house. The bar room floor is my living room floor. And but I found out, unfortunately, architecture requires something called math. Frank Lloyd Wright must have been a whiz, because his stuff is still standing, and I'm pretty sure mine would have fallen down in a heartbeat. So then I decided commercial art, because commercial, you get paid while you're still alive instead of having to wait until you're dead to clean up like Van Gogh, right? He's rolling in the dough right now. Then, of course, art means you're not really working for a living. And Vietnam War comes along. I get caught up in the draft, given a choice between 2 years in rice paddy and 4 years in the service of my choice. I picked the Air Force and managed to BS my way into a job as an illustrator. It wasn't quite the same as Can You Draw Tippy the Turtle, but it was damn near. I mean, those were the qualifications. And I'll tell you what, the guy who gave me my test, that was taking pity on a guy who is desperate to stay the hell out of combat in any way, shape, or form, because he helped me through the whole quiz. I mean, he pointed out, this is this, that is that, and left me to fill in the blanks myself, which I did. And I passed with flying colors for some reason. So while I was in basic training, I met a guy by the name of Bailey Phelps, who said, forget commercial art, you should become a cartoonist. I said, why? He said, because cartoonists only work 2 or 3 days a week and they make $1 million a year. I said, that's for me. So Bailey, wherever you are, you owe me $49.5 million and about 68 years time off. It's been one of those things. I think my first year in the business, I averaged 100 hours a week, but I made $13,800 in those 100 hours. I mean, that was pretty fantastic. It was $1,800 more than a New York City cop made, and about $5,000 less than a New York City garbage man made at the time. Probably still, I don't know. So I went to art school at Chicago Academy of Fine Art, which boasted that they had as their alumni, among others, Walt Disney, who was expelled, by the way, and Hal Foster of Prince Valiant fame. Well, it turns out that Hal Foster and his buddy had ridden their bicycles down from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and they actually attended every single art school in Chicago until the school found out that they weren't paying tuition. They would pitch them into the street and they'd move on to the next school. I wasn't smart enough to do that. I had to wait for the GI Bill. And so in the meantime, I was an illustrator in the Air Force, stationed in Saigon. And another friend, Ed Savage, came to be assigned in my shop. I was one of the, I think I was running night shift at the base graphic shop at Thompson Wood Air Base in Saigon at the time. And Ed had a stack of his favorite comics, about so big, maybe a dozen and maybe 20 comics. And in there was the Dick Giordano, Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, Green Lantern, Green Arrow. And I was blown away. I had gotten away from comic books about the time I got seriously interested in girls, which was average back then, right? By the time you were in your mid-teens, if you were still reading comics, you were maybe a little bit of a dork, which described me perfectly. I don't know why I threw over comic books for girls, but there I did. At any rate, I was completely floored because at the time that I had gotten away from comics, the Marvel Silver Age, I guess you'd want to call it, had just begun. I had the first appearances of Spider-Man, Thor, Iron Man, the Hulk, all that stuff under my bed when I went off to college, and used to terrorize my mom by bringing home the Overstreet price guide. But when it got to the point where she'd look at the price of a comic book, and it's enough to buy that new Winnebago that she wanted, right? It was just too cruel to keep doing it. So I latched onto the Green Lantern Green Arrow right away. I decided that that's the kind of work that I wanted to do. But I was always interested in comic strips more than comic books. To which end I created two. One called Iron Mike, a hard-boiled private detective in the vein of Mickey Spillane, and that went absolutely nowhere. And the second one called Savage Empire, which was about archaeologist who falls through a time warp and winds up in Atlantis. And I had 6 weeks of dailies, no, 6 weeks of Sundays, 2 weeks of dailies, and a complete synopsis of the balance of the story all written out and in my portfolio when I took a trip to New York in 1973 to Phil Sewell's Comic-Con. And there was Saul Harrison, who was running DC Comics at the time, and he was looking at portfolios. I actually expected to take the town by storm. I had expected to run into all the newspaper editors, all the syndicate editors. I thought for sure if I made a phone call, they'd want to see my stuff. And every one of them said, "Kid, you're like 15 years too late." Nobody was buying action adventure strips anymore. But Funky Winkerbean was selling like crazy, and still is. So obviously, I didn't know my butt from a hole in the ground when it came to marketability. But as I was turning away from Saul's table, having left my portfolio with him, some of my commercial artwork that I had done, some stuff from Vietnam. I'm pretty sure I took out all the classified stuff that I had swiped. Don't tell Merrick Garland, okay? But at any rate, whatever. That it was so long ago. I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations has expired.
Mike, Merrick Garland would know where those swipes came from.
He would what?
He would know where those swipes came from. He's
absolutely.
And he and I bought our comics at the same place. He lived about 3 blocks away from me.
Oh my God.
True. We went to grammar school and high school together.
That is funny. That is really funny.
My phone call now.
So he's a man of the people.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously. Gotta love him. So, as I'm turning away from the table, there's an old guy standing there, and by old I mean 20 years younger than I am right now. And he saw that I showed Saul Harrison my portfolio, and he said, "Can I take a look?" So I showed him, and he said, "You need to get your carcass up to Julie Schwartz's office and show him this stuff." I said, "Great. Can I tell him who sent me?" And he said, "Just tell him Irv sent you." Well, it turned out to be Irv Novick, who was the Batman artist at the time. Irv was just a terrific artist, just amazing. Became sort of a mentor to me in that when I would show him pages in the hallways of DC or meet over in the bullpen area and show him what I was turning in, when he would spot something that was really miserably poorly drawn, he would say, if you do this and this, it'll punch it right up. That's how you learn to draw bigger feet. If you look at my early Legion of Superheroes stuff, those guys are all wearing like size 4 shoes, and their arms are so short that if they had pockets, they wouldn't be able to reach their car keys. At any rate, I'd walk into Julie's office, and I had the encyclopedia salesman speech all rehearsed. Good afternoon, Mr. Schwartz. Could I interest you in this Lux 37 set of the Encyclopedia Britannica, complete with annual yearbook and calendar, right? And you get interrupted anywhere along the line, you have to go mentally back to good afternoon, Mr. Schwartz. Well, that's how far I got. Good afternoon, Mr. Schwartz. And Julie said, what the hell makes you think you could draw comics? And I unzipped my portfolio, put it on his desk, and I said, take a look and you tell me. And he looked, called Joey Orlando in from the next office, and he put their heads together, and I walked out a half an hour later with a script in my hand for Aquaman. That was the beginning of it. I turned that script in a week later, turned in the pencils a week later, and got the letter pages. I got a second story assignment and brought that home. And when I got back, the phone was ringing, and it was Joe Orlando. Said, "You think you can handle a monthly book?" Of course I can handle a monthly book. Like, you ask any actor if they can ride a horse. Of course I can ride a horse. How hard can it be, right? Then you find out that you've got 6 weeks before they start filming. So you got 6 weeks to take horseback riding lessons. That's how you figure it. But the answer, it's like improv. The answer is always yes. And so he said, Murray Boltinoff doesn't know it yet because he's on vacation, but Dave Cockrum just walked off the Legion of Superheroes. You mind if I recommend you for the job? Like, would I mind? I had packed up the wife and the dog in our exploding Pinto and moved out to New York State on the come, just sure as could be that I was going to take the town by storm. So I got an audition job, paid a book that, a short story that Dave Cockrum had already penciled, and inking that was my audition. So I turned it in, and Murray goes down the hall to whoever's office, Saul's at the time, and comes back a few minutes later. He says, "Well, I've got good news and bad news." I said, "Well, what's the good news?" He said, "You got the job." And I said, "Well, what's the bad news?" And he said, "You can expect to get hate mail." I said, "I haven't even done anything yet. Nothing of mine was in print." And he said, "Doesn't matter. For starters, you're replacing the most popular artist we ever had on this book. And to top things off, we're going to kill off one of the fans' favorite characters in your first issue." And he was right. The fan mail was all like, "Grell, you suck. Bring back Dave. Give us Dave. Dave or nothing," right? But somehow I stuck with it and managed to pull through. Along the way, I got to work with Carrie Bates, Jim Shooter. While I was still on Aquaman, doing the backup stories, by the way, I illustrated Paul Levitz's first story, and I gifted that to him on the spot as soon as the original came back to me. And last year, the package just dropped through my mailbox, and it was from Paul, and he had returned that original story, which was a grand gesture. It really was. He and I have always gotten along famously. He's the guy who's really responsible for the remarkable changes that occurred at DC over so many years in terms of creator rights and everything else. He had more than a small vested interest because he was writing. It was in his best interest to make sure that the writers were well treated. Well, if you treat the writers well, you better treat the artists well too. So then, excuse me, among other adventures, I got word that the Atlas Comics company was firing back up, and that they were offering $100 a page and creator ownership. I went, that's for me. So I packed up my Savage Empire portfolio, took it over there, and showed it to an editor, Jeff Roden. And Jeff looked it over. He said, yeah, we like it. We want to do it. I said, well, look, I've got commitments at DC, and I want to be able to prove to them that I can fulfill my commitments. And so I want to have 2 issues of Savage Empire in the can before any announcement is made. He went, no problem. So I walked 20 minutes across town from his office to DC, and Carmine Infantino was waiting for me in the lobby. And Carmine wanted to know why the hell I hadn't brought the project to him first. And I said, you guys haven't had much luck with Sword and Sorcery, which was true. And also creator ownership and $100 a page. And Carmine said, I can't give you creator ownership. We don't do that. And I can't give you $100 a page. But what I can do is give you top rate and a 1-year guarantee, which is more than you'll get from Atlas, which turned out to be true. I don't think any of the guys who were the original creators at Atlas wound up owning their material. And within just maybe 3 issues or so, they were all replaced by foreign artists who'd worked for $25 a page. So the $100 a page was a big hooey. So he said, come on in and give me the pitch. And if I like it, I'll run it past Joe. And if he likes it, we'll give you a 1-year guarantee. So walking through the door, my brain kicked in and said, you dummy, if he buys this, you lose it. So luckily the phone was ringing. And in that 3-minute gap while he talked on the phone, I jettisoned the concept of the archaeologist in Atlantis and replaced it with an Air Force SR-71 pilot whose plane is diverted into the gap at the North Pole that leads to the center of the Earth, where it's hollow, and the place is inhabited by leftovers from Atlantis. And oh, by the way, the dinosaurs never died out, so those buggers are around too. Magic works, science fiction, you can do anything you wanted with that kind of stuff. I changed all the names, and except one. I couldn't think of a better villain name than Demos, and it still is. I mean, okay, Dark Side is really, probably even better, but I didn't think of it. So, but Demos is not your grade school crossing guard. I mean, just not. I had just finished reading a book called The Hollow Earth. And it turns out that before the turn of the 20th century, there were something like 85 or 87 titles written on the subject of the Earth being hollow, including one of my all-time favorites, A Journey to the Center of the Earth, by Julius Verne. And so I pulled everything out of my hat and other bodily orifices and BS my way through the pitch. He asked me, what's this place called? I said Scartaris, which is named for the mountain peak that points the way for the party to follow down into the volcano Snæfellsjökull in Iceland in Journey to the Center of the Earth. I read that thing like 8 times in high school and saw the movie. I think I'm on like maybe 25 or 26 times. the city, the main city, Shambhala, Three Dog Night. How does your light shine on the road to Shambhala?
Be careful, you
yeah.
got to get us kicked off YouTube now.
Yeah,
Don't
no,
sing
we,
too many
no,
bugs.
we don't have to worry for just one phrase. I'm pretty sure not sung that badly.
They won't know what it was.
Without accompaniment.
Hey, Mike. I hate to burst in for a second, but we also have somebody else that comes in. I hate to interrupt a great story.
No, it's
I'm
okay.
going to rotate a few people out. Plus, a lot of people have been commenting. I want to make sure you got a hold of some of those. But Mike Gold, if you don't mind, you can stay in here. I'll bring you back in, but I'm going to pull you out. Let somebody else come in for a second.
Not a
Who
problem.
wanted to wish you whatever he wants to wish you. Give me 1 second. And we have Mr. John Dell.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Hey, John.
How's it going, man?
It's going great.
Congratulations. Oh, I'm glad.
Thank
to hear.
you.
Congratulations.
See, I told you people do live this long.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to push it, but I hope I make it as long as you. I got to tell you, Mike Grell is probably the first professional I ever met. And I'm going to tell you, it was a Pensacola show in a mall in 1983. And
oh my Lord.
Meeting you let me know, okay, there's actually a future in comics. And that, you were such a great guy there. You had all your artwork and you were just so pleasant to talk to, very informative, very instructive, very polite. Just, it really meant a lot to me to meet you back then when I was just, I'm not going to date it. I was just a young kid in high school, but it really meant a lot to me to meet you. And it kind of helped guide me into a little getting to know you and how you interact with fans. Let me know that that's the way you should do it. And it's kind of meant a lot to me. So,
I got a lesson in how to deal with fans from a country singer by the name of Sonny James. I was at a concert in Memphis at the Mid-South Coliseum in maybe about 78, something like that. And no, oh God, I'm 10 years too late, 68. And Sonny James was appearing there with a large roster of other people. But after his set, he came down and sat on the edge of the stage. Sonny James had, at that point, something like 25 or 26 in a row, #1 hits, country singer. And he sat on the edge of the stage and he sold and signed autograph albums, right? And every time he would sign an autograph for someone, whether it was in a book or on an album or whatever, he would look him in the eye, smile, and say thank you. And I thought, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. It's a public relations business as much as anything else. But
that's true.
As time goes on, you get to understand that. Somebody asked me, doesn't it bug you having to answer the same question 100 times a day? No, because the person who's asking it is asking it for the first time. And they deserve the same kind of response, straightforward and honest, that you would give the first guy who asked you the very first time that question was ever asked. So that's always been my theory of how to deal with folks. Treat them right and they'll treat you right.
Right. Yeah, it meant a lot. It carried a lot of weight, and how to deal with fans. It did. That, and just growing up a good boy, growing up a happy kid. So thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
That's because just like your parents, I never told you all the crap I did when I was your age, right? Right. When you're talking to a youngster, you never go, "Oh yeah, I remember the time you dropped the dynamite stick in the outhouse."
Right. I still
dynamite stick.
The first book I remember seeing you, of course, was The Warlord. Wasn't even the first issue of Warlord. It was what, a first issue special?
Yes.
Yeah, because I remember seeing that, and I was big into dinosaurs. It's like there it was right on the cover. Warlord fighting a velociraptor or something. Just this book's for me. This artist is for me. Let's follow him and see where he's going. And then to meet you, and then now to know you as a friend is really cool. I like that. I enjoy that thing. I enjoy that.
For me, it's such a kick to find out that I've had an influence on so many young people in the industry. It floors me. I mentioned Dan Jurgens, who wrote me a fan letter when he was 14 years old and asked me advice on how to get into the business. And by golly, he took it because 7 years later, he sent me a copy of that same fan letter along with a copy of his portfolio and a note saying, this is what I've been doing. I've been sending it out to everybody and haven't had any success, not getting any response. I said, stand by. And 2 weeks later, I had him on the Warlord. And again, later on, he followed me on Green Arrow, which led to one of the silliest and most entertaining and the most fun stories I've ever done. I get a call from Mike Gold, who's lurking somewhere in the ether, hopefully still listening in. So many of these harebrained schemes started with Mike Gold. He phoned me up and said, okay, I've been a little brother all my life, so I'm easily led astray, right? If your older brother says, take this stick and poke that hornet's nest, just see what comes out, right? That's kind of the relationship that Mike and I had over the years, even though he's younger than me, but he's always been bigger than me. So even if he was younger, I couldn't kick his ass, which takes all the fun out of having a little brother.
It's been a good partnership.
So I get a phone call from Mike one day saying that Dan Jurgens wants to do a crossover with the Warlord and Green Arrow. I went, oh no freaking way. Absolutely no way. And Mike says, now wait a minute, just hear me out here. It's all predicated on the well-known fact that you only know how to draw one face. I laughed my ass off and I said, okay, we'll do it. And it turned out to be just hysterical. And not only just funny as anything, fun and entertaining. It was a damn good story. It all starts with Ollie and Dinah in the sack, as they usually are. And there's this incessant banging on the door this time, not just Ollie and Dinah. And sure. The door opens
Mike back in here.
And it is Travis Morgan. And they come face to face and it's like, hey, you look just like me. And Morgan proceeds to knock Ollie on his ass because he's been in Seattle for only 3 days, having returned to the surface briefly. And everybody's been trying to kill him because they think he's Oliver Queen. And he says, whatever you're doing, piss people off, cut it out. Right. So we just had a ball. And Dan was really, really cool about it too, because he drew that difference, like the difference between Clark Kent and Superman that Kurt Swan drew. And you could see the two different people there. And you could see the difference between Oliver Queen and Travis Morgan. Morgan's got a bit more of a break to his nose, and a little craggier, a little older, a little heavier, whatever. But it was so cool, so much fun. Where I was going with that.
We actually had just finished a very heavy storyline, which was not uncommon for Green Arrow, but it was very, very heavy. And I thought we should lighten it up a little bit. We should put a little bit more Oliver back into the story and a little less superhero stuff. Let's make it about something other than the world coming to an end through nefarious means, and maybe just limited to one guy killing Oliver Queen, a good guy. And I think that story was amazing, just beautiful.
I can't tell you how many copies of that book I've signed over the years, but there's not a single day at any convention that someone doesn't drop it on my table for a signature. Usually way more than one.
Well, I really hope I have as long and as distinguished a career as you have. I'd like to hope that I can make the distance like you have, and kind of hopefully be in your shoes one day.
John,
Here's
the
here's
trick
here's
is
the tip.
there's a trick to it. And Grell has this down perfectly. Every couple of years, you move to a different state.
I think my wife wouldn't like that.
But just until the statute of limitations expires, okay?
Right.
Exactly.
Like, for instance, Mike Gold has been able to return to Florida since 1990 something or other.
Unhindered.
Right.
It's,
Yeah, that
probably
statute of limitations
probably
expired.
earlier than that, but a mutual friend of ours,
yeah.
although I haven't seen him in a while. Harry Broches was an editor at the Miami Herald, and he did me a favor and ran me through the system just to see if the warrants were still out. It was for obscenity, and it was for a political speech where I managed to say a nasty word prefaced by how Jim Morrison, who was just arrested in Florida, had invited me down. And they didn't like my speech because I ratted out where all the undercover cops were. It's not like I was planning on going back to Florida. And oddly enough, right now, I have no intention of going to Florida.
Nice beaches.
Yeah, I don't like what it takes to get there.
That's why.
Well, for more,
Not my favorite state.
That's why his
What?
name says East Coast Mike. He's always on the move. He's up and down the entire Atlantic seaboard, always one step ahead of the law.
well, with our kind of job, it doesn't matter where you live. It really doesn't. You could live anywhere as long as there's a FedEx box or you got Wi-Fi internet to mail your pages in. So it could be paradise, and you won't see it.
FedEx played a major role in the first issue of John Sable Freelance because FedEx had just started. And I had to explain to Mike how, you just put it in this little envelope and I get it the next day. And Mike just saw all these deadlines flying away in his mind, like, oh my God, there goes that stuff. And FedEx did deliver the logo for John Sable Freelance, but they punched a hole in it.
God, I don't want to go into those stories. But there, it used to be a thing. You had if you got into FedEx Thursday night, it would get in their DC's offices Friday. You had everything was good. You got your invoices in. You had to do that Delta Dash if you couldn't make FedEx. But now with the internet, it's so much easier. Now you just scan your pages in, but you have to do all the production work. That's the thing now. As an inker, I have to do all the production work. I have to do all the lettering on the boards. I wish there were more live letterers. I wish I wish I didn't have to do all that stuff, but it does save a little bit of time on deadlines. It does add to your deadline time because you can finish it Friday and still get it in on time instead of doing that. Oh God, because I've been working on pages on the way to FedEx, trying to make sure I get there in time for it to get to DC or Marvel the next morning.
We've all been
in Manhattan, you could actually see who's a cartoonist by riding the subways because they're finishing their job while they're going into the syndicate office or the comic book publisher's office, and that is not an exaggeration. I have seen it several times.
Yeah, good old FedEx, those days. And then you still get boxes, packages bent, packages punctures through them. It still happens.
Yep.
It's part of the business.
Well, it's great. Now I see now we have some of the comments popping up that people have been making kind of all along the way.
I've been reading them all. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate that.
There's a couple. Gus, who runs, created the original the Facebook page, the Mike Grell fan page group that I help Gus run. It pointed out that one of Dan Jurgen's early fan letters was actually printed in the letter column of Superboy and the Legion.
Cool.
I did not know that.
Yeah, a little bit of
I
trivia.
tried like hell. I tried like hell to get Marvel to print one of my letters. It never happened. I would like to have had that story. My letter was in an issue of Fantastic Four. No such luck.
Very nice.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and rotate out so somebody else can get in. I really appreciate it. This was really
Actually,
a blast. Thanks,
I
Mike.
wanted to jump in before you left, John, because you know, quite honestly, this is all, you know, celebrating Mike's 50th anniversary, and it's actually because of you. I mean, I've been a huge fan of Mike's for a long time. I won't bring it out because I won't embarrass Mike. I actually have the only actual copy of a comic book that I have that is graded is one of Mike's, and the only reason I got it graded was because it was the very first comic I bought with my own money. Now I had a lot of comics before then, but this was the very first comic I bought with my own money, and I still had the original copy of the one I bought. And the way Mike signed it, I knew it had to be in the CGC database. And it was actually because of you, because I think you were the one that suggested to me, he's like, dude, you've got to get that graded.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and embarrass Mike anyway, because it was signed to my good buddy Scott. It would have been cheaper if I would have taken you out and bought you some crack. So that is officially in the CGC database now. It is the one and only graded comic book that I own, and it will never go anywhere. It is actually it stays here at the shop. It is available on display for anybody who would like to see it. Anybody can hold it. Anybody can handle it. They can, you know, they can take care of it. You know, and the worst part is, or actually, no, the best part of it is, it actually describes the relationship I have with Mike. And I'm going to turn this on you for a second, Mike, because you know you started off as being one of those iconic people. You know, growing up, there were very few people that I could originally. I knew their artwork from the time I saw it. You know, Kurt Swan, Schappenberger, you. Those were my quintessential three as I was growing up, being a big Legion fan. And you know, actually, it was through Steve Scott, who we can't get his microphone to work, that I actually got a chance to you know get a chance to talk to you and finally meet you. And I've got to tell you, you know, you went from being an iconic personality, a legendary talent, to being not even a friend, not just anything. You are family. I do want to tell you that I love you to death. You mean more to me than you'll ever know. You brought me and my family a lot of joy, a lot of happiness, and every time you know we talk, it brightens up my day. And for that, I don't want to thank you as a comic book artist. I want to thank you as a person. I love you. I wish you the best. You know, you entrusted me and my daughter to take care of your wedding. You know, we appreciated everything, and I've got to tell you, you mean more to me than you'll ever know. So. I know more stories about you than I probably should. Growing up, I
Okay,
always
the good thing is that if I told them, they're maybe 50-50,
well
maybe true, maybe not.
the big thing is you know I always dreamed of the day I could talk to you, you know, and talk to you about comics and everything else. Now we talk all the time, and I don't think even one time we've ever talked about comics. We've talked about what's going on in your life, what's on in your family's life, what's going on in my family's life. You know,
Right.
you know, problems at the hospital. You know, having to go do this. You know, it's all the personal stuff, and for that I have to uh, thank you. I have to thank Steve. I have to thank John, and because it's meant a lot to me to be a part of something I never thought I would be. So, Mike, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very, very much. I love you, your family, and I'm glad I could be a part of this.
That's
The
great.
feeling is 100% mutual, buddy. 100% mutual.
All right, I talked enough. I'll shut up now.
Mike, I'll
That's
see you.
okay.
I'll see you soon, man. I'll see you soon.
All right, John. Thank you very
All right.
much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, Jerry Clayton, Fayetteville Comic Con. There you go.
Yeah.
Good guys.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
super.
So
the
we're,
part about
I think,
this, to me, the best part about
say
this
it again,
business
Mike.
is the best part about this business are the friendships that we have all made along the way, and it's been just wonderful. I look back at people that I've known and been tight with for almost 50 years. It's pretty close for you and me. And these are my best friends. These are my family. This is my family. And I'm so proud to be part of the comic book donut shop. And it's because of people like you, Mike, and you were one of my very first friends who earned a full-time living at a drawing board. And it meant a lot to me, still does.
I appreciate it, buddy. This guy is responsible for so much of my career. And skipping sort of backward and then forward. Okay, when Carmine promised me a year's run on the Warlord, that lasted 3 issues, and he canceled it. I walked in one day and I was reviewing lettered pages for issue number 3 of the Warlord, and I imagined my shock when I turned the last page and read the end. It said to Joe Orlando, he promised me a year's run. And Joe said, yeah, he canceled it. I said, he can't do that. He said, well, he lied. He does that. Well, fortunately for me, a couple of weeks later, Jeanette Kahn walked in and canceled Carmine Infantino. And it turns out that The Warlord had been one of Jeanette's favorite books in the lineup. And she was looking at the publishing schedule and she said, where's The Warlord? And they said, well, Carmine canceled it. She said, Carmine's not here anymore. Put it back. And we managed to survive the DC implosion at the cost of Star Slayer, which was originally intended to be a companion book for the Warlord. So the complete opposite from modern man in a primitive society to a primitive, barbarian type character in the middle of Star Wars. And along with everything else that went on, I got an approach from Pacific Comics, and the deal was that they were going to offer what God, what's her name? Yeah, 76 years old. I mean, in one brain cell, out the other. Atlas Comics could never deliver them. They were again offering creator ownership and royalties, and I went, "Oh, that's for me." Well, that was pretty good. I was the first artist to sign with them. I had already done a portfolio for their company, and Jack Kirby was second. Neil Adams was third. Jack's book came out first. Star Slayer came out second because Jack could finish a book in the time I've been speaking here practically. He could certainly do a page in this amount of time. And Neil's book came out sort of. But pretty soon the checks started bouncing and the handwriting was on the wall. It was time to go someplace else. Well, then I get a phone call from Mr. Gold, who says, a bunch of us in Chicago here have come up with this harebrained scheme. Plan for publishing. We're going to publish comics, and we'd like to have you on board. And best of all, we will give you carte blanche, creator ownership, royalties on the sales, carte blanche to do anything you want to do. And I went, man, that's for me. I had already had 6 issues of Star Slayer finished, and we did a little bit of bridging to launch that first because it was a way to get in front of the public. By the way, Dave Stevens' Rocketeer debuted in issue number 2 of Star Slayer. And then we launched Dawn Sable Freelance, which was my way of creating a character in a book that would allow me to do the kind of stories that I wanted to do. I was tired of muscle-bound guys in skin-tight suits, and I just wanted to do the types of stories that I felt would draw out the best in me, my best art, my best writing. And so I came up with this concept of um, a guy who's a former Olympic pentathlon, which is the 5 events, modern pentathlon, cross country running, swimming, fencing, pistol shooting, and horseback riding, all developed from the Napoleonic days when couriers had to be able to do all of that in order to complete their mission. And that gave me an easy way to say, yes, this guy can shoot a pistol like crazy. He can fight with a sword if he has to. He can run cross country miles and miles if he has to. He can ride a horse. He can do this. He can do that, without having to go into some kind of elaborate creation myth of how he got his powers, how he learned everything. And I set it in Africa because I always loved Africa. I had just done the Tarzan comic strip in the Sunday papers, and I fantasized about the day I would go to Africa, and I finally made it. I made it twice, and when I set foot the first time, it was like I'd come home. You could feel that ancestral something or other just pulling me down into the earth. It was fantastic. So, with all of that in mind, didn't want to get too heavy on it, because anything that's deadly serious is always better if it has a bit of humor to break it up. So I came up with the concept that it would be the reverse of Batman. No secret identity, none of this. By day, the mild mannered whatever, by night, the dark avenger. And the only time he ever puts on a disguise is when he has to appear in public and sign books for a book signing, because he is the author of a best-selling children's series called We the People, and it's about a troop of leprechauns living in a fairy mountain in Central Park, based on the bedtime stories he told his own children. And that's the only time he wears a disguise, too. Puts on a Harpo Marx wig, pair of nerd glasses, fake mustache, tweed jacket, goes by the name of B.B. Flemm, F-L-E-M-M, which written out is not so bad, but when you say it, it's like Flemm, right? But that's the whole point of it. And off we went. He's a mercenary, former game warden, professional hunter in Africa, whose family is wiped out by poachers in a reprisal raid, and he goes off his nut and slaughters them in the most horrific ways you can imagine, and spends months trying to track down the last guy. And the thing is, if all you have left to live for is vengeance, what do you do once your vengeance is done? Well, in Sable's case, he becomes a hopeless drunk and winds up falling in with a group of mercenaries who use him, abuse him, not in that fashion. I know what you're thinking. But they take advantage of his weakness and his situation, and he winds up being deported from Africa, deported back to the United States, where he tries to establish himself as a writer. He's trying to sell blood and thunder action adventure stuff, and nobody's buying. But he gets a note from Eden Kendall, who has spotted something in one of his books, and the thing that she likes is the children's stories. And she says, "Look, this I can sell." And he's thinking, "I don't. Hey, Steve, I see you back down there in the corner. And who is that lovely child over your shoulder?
Oh,
Who is that lovely? Who is that lovely child over your shoulder?"
He brought his own tech support this time.
we still can't hear you, but
I
it was
figured we
worth
would.
it.
I
But it
figured
was
we would
worth it to
try
see the
again.
expression on her face.
Yeah, now that we have somebody smarter than him up there, I figured we would try again.
Absolutely.
Actually, this is a good
He went
breaking
onto
point.
the street to Grell, the first 15-year-old he could spot.
While we're waiting for him to try to figure out his voice, I do want to interject for something for a second. I'm gonna let you explain it, Mike, because anybody that's watching, before he forgot about it, there are some special prints that are going to be available for your 50th anniversary.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to bring them up on the screen, and I'm going to let you talk about them and let people know how to get a hold of them, and the limited edition on them and everything else. So I'll bring the first one on the screen. It's probably going to cover you up, but we don't want to. I mean,
That's okay.
unfortunately, we got to get rid of your
much
beautiful
better that way.
visage. But here's the
Much
first
better
one.
that way.
And you
Yes.
go ahead and let people know how they
yeah.
can get them and what the edition is and everything else. So
That's
This is the character Atani from Savage Empire, that comic strip that I based the Warlord on. It's also my very first and probably only ever attempt at digital rendering. I started with a pencil sketch, fairly loose, and spent days and days and days doing this, and realized at the end of it that I had nothing that I could hold in my hands. So it's been a file on my computer since that time. And it was done in the early 1990s, and I can't tell you what kind of a program I used. Probably primitive as hell by today's standard. As I recall, the computer had a hand crank on the side. It was either the computer or the coffee grinder, one of the two. But the character Atani features very strongly in Savage Empire. She's the romantic interest who became Tara in the Warlord. 50 years on, and this, as I had said before, this was the portfolio that I left with Saul Harrison. Interestingly, several years after the Warlord was in print, that I received a photograph of a package, big package from DC Comics, and I had no idea what it could possibly be. So I opened it up, and there is my portfolio with Savage Empire in it, and it was accompanied by a form letter rejection slip that read, "Dear artist, thank you very much for your submission. Unfortunately, it does not meet our current publishing needs. Best wishes, or best of luck, DC editorial staff." And which was a crack up, because at the time, under the name The Warlord, just happened to be one of the best selling titles. There you go. Nobody knows nothing. So we're going to be offering, because this is 50th anniversary, there will be 50 copies of this and the other print available only. They'll be done by the same company that produces our prints for our Kickstarter projects, called Googleplex Collectibles, on I think it's 16-point stock. It's all museum archive, UV protected, very heavy stiff stock, signed and numbered, 1 of 50, $50 each. Okay, plus $25 shipping and handling. If you want it remarked, I can do a sketch for you, small sketch that'll fit there in the bottom right-hand corner of one of the characters or something, anything you like. And that's an additional $50. So $50 for the sketch, including the signature. $25 shipping and handling, and then there you go.
That's nice.
Yeah, and this is the second one, because my very first DC comic story was Aquaman, As the Undersea City Sleeps by Steve Skates, who was heavily into, I don't know, alliteration and Schlitz, I think. He really liked the letter S for some inexplicable reason. So this is a piece from back in the 1990s, and it's never been offered as a print before. And it'll be on that same stock. Plenty of room up here for any kind of remark that you'd like, and signature as well. And once again, limited to an edition of 50, signed and numbered, and that's going to be it. There won't be any more after that. And Scott will provide you with the information on exactly how to place an order. He's got we're going to take orders through his shop, 3 Alarm Comics. That's correct, right?
Yeah, so what we'll do is as soon as the stream is over with, I will go ahead and put something onto our social media and allow people to, we'll set up some type of order form where people can order them. And once Mike gets them in and they're all signed and remarked by him, once we get all the orders, and I let him know, what has to be done on each one, he's going to take care of that and get them to us, and then we will ship them out to whoever wants them. And like I said, they're limited to 50 each. Well, I say 49 each because I'll be damned if I'm not going to get one of each. But
hey, wait a minute. Whoa, maybe 49. No, the total edition.
I'm sorry, there'll be 49
50.
available because I'm getting one of each.
There'll be 48 available because I'm keeping number 1.
Then I'm going to get number 2. So number 3 and up are going to be available. But yeah, we'll put up on our social media and everything, all our site, our page, our store stuff, how to get available. And with Jeff's permission, we'll probably put it on the Mike Grell fan page as well. It will be a first come first serve, as Mike said. There's only be 50 available of each. So I'm sorry, 48 available of each, and we'll put on there the pricing, everything else. We can take credit card payments through Square, PayPal, however we got to do it. So this is your chance to own a piece of history, as far as I'm concerned. You get a limited edition thing that is only available and it's being announced right here, right now.
Right.
Exciting stuff.
Damn.
And I see Steve Scott down in the corner.
Making a toast.
He still can't talk, but
There you go.
World famous American mime who's now an expatriate living in Belgium. You'll see him on street corners, painted white, pulling himself up a rope and trapped behind glass. He's quite amazing to see. There you go. A little taste of his work right there.
And Mike Zabzik actually also, he wanted to apologize. He actually had to got pulled earlier. He dropped out a little bit earlier. He had some things he had to take care of, some prior obligations, but he did want me to let you know that he loves your stuff. He's a big fan of yours, and he was so proud to be part of this experience and part of your 50th. So, and he wanted to tell you thank you for everything you've done.
I'm really looking forward to the day when I can do an appearance at his shop.
We actually talked about it earlier. We're going to get things together, and he and I were talking on the phone before all this started, and we're going to get up there, and we've already figured out, if Mary wants to come, fine. I'm coming regardless. I can be your handler or not. I don't care, but I'm going regardless.
Hey, I may have to come to that one too. I've always wanted to visit that shop.
I mean,
there you
honestly,
go.
and to give them a plug, Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, that's Kevin Smith's comic shop, and Mike's the one who runs it. Him and his wife Julia, some of the best people I've ever met. I know that you'll love it when you go up there. They're going to treat you like family. And if you get a chance, if you want to go up there, they've got some really good merchandise. They've got a lot of good back issues. They've got their stuff online. But yeah, so just to give them a little plug. Not like they need it. Those guys have enough freaking advertisement with just Kevin Smith. But Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash.
Isn't that the store with the 2 weed dealers out in front?
Well, that's their characters. The Jay and Silent Bob
characters. I see.
Yeah.
I don't know, Mike.
Inside they deal in comics. Outside they deal in weed. Yes.
Mike, I just met you, but I have a feeling you want to go.
Absolutely.
He's on the East Coast, so it should be easy for him to do.
Ah,
Oh,
To,
that's
to,
Steve
to
just
get
put
away
up
from
a sign
everything,
that says,
it is
"Come
legal.
back to Belgium."
And
Absolutely,
actually,
it's high on
it
our
is
list.
legal in New Jersey.
And
It's
actually,
legal.
a gentleman named Torrin Miller, he's posting in the comments now. Actually, had popped in.
That
Uh,
gentleman
So
happens
Torrin,
to
if
be
you
my
want to come back,
son.
well, so Torrin, if you want to come
Say hi to
back
Mike.
in,
Live stream.
click the link.
Hey,
We'll bring you back
here-
in.
Look at this. Here's hey Mike.
Oh, there
Hello.
you go.
Hey,
My son wishing Mike a 50th
that's
anniversary.
Nicholas.
But
He's done
Torrin,
some cons with us.
Torrin, if you're listening, if you want to jump back in, I'm sorry you came in right in the middle of stuff. I couldn't bring you in, but if you'd like to jump back in, we'll pull you in really, really quick. We'll get rid of Steve since he can't talk anyway.
Well said.
He's performing really well down in the corner, though. You can drop me out too if you want.
It's like he's a mime. I mean, honestly, that's what I said. I've been pulling myself out left and right, but nobody wants to look at my ugly mug.
You just want to get refills. I know
Yeah,
what's
if-
going on over there.
If
Hey,
Tom is
don't-
still
don't-
on, please
don't
come
tell
back
me.
in, son.
Yeah, so Torrin,
There's-
please click the link, come back in, and we'll get you on here with Mike.
To tell you the truth, I have a deadline. Now, Mike, deadlines are those dates you're supposed to hit with whatever it is they're paying you to do.
Lean a little closer, Mike. There you go.
Deadlines. I was explaining to you what a deadline is. It's the date by which you're supposed to give people what you promised them.
Yes.
So I have one of those in front of me right now. And in order to hit that, I'm going to have to take a walk. But my
You trying
God,
to sneak a pee or something? What's up?
I can't believe it's been 50
This
years.
this would not have been the same without you, pal. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, but that's nothing compared to our friendship. That is nothing compared to our friendship. And the next time that I hear that Del Close is going to be at eating hamburgers, you're going to be sitting there next to him. You tell that story sometime.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. You guys take it easy.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Mike,
Yeah,
thank you
Mike.
very much.
Always a pleasure.
In the bottom right-hand corner of my screen right at this moment, the gentleman with a beard is Torrin Miller, and the young lady over his shoulder with the cat ears, just returning from her first gymnastic competition, is my granddaughter Piper. Torrin is my son.
Hello.
Hey, I'm so glad you guys could make it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. As long as it was 7 p.m. Central Time, we're good.
Yeah.
Wait, it is like 8 p.m. Central Time, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
a little
well-
after 8 now.
We,
Yeah.
we tend to run a little long-winded.
That's okay.
Yeah, for some
I made it
strange
then.
reason. So Piper,
Yeah.
there you are. You got the whole view in the shot. Oh, you're so pretty.
You.
So she's all of 8 years old now.
9.
9.
Don't forget that
sorry.
extra year.
That's right. I missed that birthday in July. Yeah.
Yep.
So just had your first gymnastics competition, right?
Yeah.
And did you win? I mean, you had like 87 points on the one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she did really good. She did really good. They got medals, they got ribbons.
Be right back.
Yeah, she's on what's called pre-team. So this is her very first competition, and she got to learn how to do everything, learn what it takes, learn what competition
I was
is.
just really amazed at the kind of stuff that she was doing.
Yep. Yeah, it's fun.
I'm so glad you guys could join us.
Thanks.
Actually, I'm going to jump back in because Torrin, you wrote some very, very poignant things. And quite honestly, somebody had actually requested that they were read out. But I think they would actually mean more coming from you directly. So I'm going to bow out. You can read them; they're on the screen there.
Sure.
But just speak from the heart, and God bless you.
Yeah, that was totally the intent. The intent was there, and I just wanted to make sure that if I couldn't get on, I was going to post it at least in text form. So, Mike, 50 years. That is amazing. That is so awesome. In the realm of comics, where shadows and ink converge, stands a titan named Mike Grell. For half a century, his chiseled tales of heroes and anti-heroes unto the forgiving canvas of creativity. His legacy is a symphony, of storytelling and artistry, from his iconic work on Green Arrow, The Longbow Hunters, defining a character to his artistic prowess and Legion of Superheroes and Warlord. Let's not forget the series I saw go from mind to matter, Shaman's Tears. Amidst his creativity maelstrom of life, Mike, or Papa Mike as his granddaughter knows him, echoes the duality of his art, taking on many of life's complexities while crafting narratives as stark as the landscape he illustrates. So here's to you, Mike Grell, Dad, the maestro of comics, an artist whose ink has left an inevitable mark on the medium for 5 remarkable decades. His work, like a timeless melody, continues to inspire and captivate. Thank you.
Oh my God. If that's in print someplace, make sure I get a copy.
Sure. I'll send that to you in mail. Yeah.
I'm far too macho to blub on camera.
That's okay. I almost
I
did.
need a
So
second here. I love you guys so much.
Me too. Yeah.
And Piper, I can't believe what a beautiful young lady you've grown into.
Yeah. She's trying to show you something. What do you got there?
It's
up here. She got a medal.
Ah, cool.
Pumpkin.
All right.
Medal.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, Torin was born the year that I created Star Slayer. I didn't meet him until he was 6 years old, but he was born the year I created Star Slayer. So I think that's the universe trying to tell me I'm on the right path, obviously.
And those who don't know, the main character in Star Slayer's name is
Torin McQuillan.
Yeah. Pretty
Torin.
crazy. Pretty crazy.
That is wild.
Yep. Does it come any more interesting than that? I mean, Crossroads. Oh, and by the way, Torin in the comic book has lost an eye to a sword cut, right? I just happened to get poked in the eye with a sword at about the same time I was doing that book. If that's the way prophecy works, I'm never going to do a book about a quadriplegic or a multiple amputee.
No, probably a good idea to steer clear of those. Don't tempt
So
the fates.
let me take a second to brag on my son here.
Yeah.
He was the greatest kid growing up. Just being around him was always interesting. He had an imagination. He had a wit about him that was just irreplaceable. I'm going to tell one story on you, but it's really on me.
That's cool.
So,
yeah.
Torin, by the way, is an IT guy with Microsoft and has been associated with Microsoft since he was 16 years old.
They should send him over to Steve's
a little
place to fix his
underachiever.
problem.
Yeah, little underachiever. So I get my first computer back in the Stone Age, and I did something, and the screen just like disappeared or whatever. And so what do? Call the kid. And he must have been 12, 14, maybe.
Well, it was early. It was, yeah.
Thereabouts.
Yeah.
And so I called the kid, and he says, here's how the conversation went, okay? It's the absolute reversal of the father-son conversation. What did you do? Nothing. You must have done something. It just doesn't do this by itself. I didn't do anything. Move over. So he shoves me aside, sits down in this chair, manipulates the keys for about 10 seconds. Screen comes back, and he gets up and says, "Don't do it again." I went, wait a minute. Come back here and show me what you did so I can fix it next time. He looks at me and he goes, "It wouldn't do any good." absolute true story. Absolute true story.
But I broke it many times too. So, something I enjoyed to
No,
do
you
on the
you didn't break it, but I came back from out of town one day, and he had assigned a different sound to every single keystroke. So I sit down to type, and the computer's going. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell?
Yeah. You remember that one that I sent you? It was a joke. It was back in the day, you used to be able to send joke files to people and it'd make it look like it was deleting his computer. I remember I sent that to him in email and he clicks on that link and it opens it up and says deleting all files. Slams on the power button and just turns everything off and then turned it back. And he's like, you have to fix it. And I did. And I turned it back on and it was all there. I mean, thank goodness.
I think that was just before he asked me for a raise in his allowance. You realize today that would be considered elder abuse.
Yeah.
I think we call it extortion.
Yeah, he was an early founder of ransomware.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, it wouldn't faze me a bit. Wouldn't surprise me.
that's funny.
Oh God, that's
Funny. Awesome. Good to see you. This is a great accomplishment. That's amazing. An amazing accomplishment. So again, thank you for letting me be a part of this and see it from as a kid, watching it and watching your legacy grow. It's been so cool. So cool.
Thank you for coming, son. I really love you
Of course.
guys.
Yep. We love
All
you
right.
too.
God bless.
Yep. Take it easy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Torin.
Bye.
Thanks.
Oh, dude, I'm not gonna lie. I know you said that you were starting to tear up, but I'll be damned. That's why I had to pull out because I was starting to tear up.
Yeah, well, it happens when you love somebody that much. I'm so blessed to have them in my life.
Well, I mean, not to turn it around, but I think we're all blessed to have you in our life too, and I'm sure Torrin will agree. You've meant so much to so many of us, not just through your storytelling and your artwork and Steve's little heart thing there. Since he can't talk about.
Hey, I can do it. Look at that. Yeah, kind of, sort of. Dang
Looks
it,
like
when it gets lopsided.
that looks like a heart
that's
attack,
better.
not a heart. But
It's a, whatever.
but I kind of want to reiterate what Torrin was saying, dude. I don't think you. Actually, I hope you do. I hope you realize how much you mean to a lot of us, and how much you've inspired so many. Just for the people that have come in and wanted to be a part of this. Steve being one of them,
Yep.
him doing his King Kong impersonation. But you've inspired so.
Look at that. There we go.
You've inspired so
that
many
Eisner
people.
nominated gem right there.
Yeah, but you've inspired so many people, not just in the world of comics, but the people who actually got to know you. I'm going to tell on you a little bit. As we've gotten to know each other a whole lot better, I've always been amazed on how you're able to relate to anybody that's come up. I've been with you at shows, I've been with you at signings, everything else, and everybody that comes up walks away with not just meeting you, but with experience. Myself included. You have an uncanny way of making people feel like they are a part of your world. And I think it's because you were true and honest in the fact that they really are.
Well, if they're not careful, like in the case of Mark Ryan, you might become part of my world. I've inserted my buddy Mark Ryan, the author of the Pilgrim, among many other things. Mark is the voice of Bumblebee and Jetfire, Lockdown in the Transformers films. He was Nazir in the Robin of Sherwood TV series, stage screen actor, just a terrific guy. But I put him in a bunch of my books, and I think the most distinguished appearance he had was when he wound up hanging from a meat hook in a sewer in New York in an issue of Shaman's Tears. And when he had he was just early on in his relationship with his future wife, Lutina, spectacular lady, and she saw that picture in my portfolio, and she said, if Mark and I ever got married, I would want to have a picture of him hanging from a meat hook. So I gave him that page as a wedding gift because it's the least I could do for my buddy, right? We've been fortunate enough to feature others of our friends in other books. The Sutherlands, Ruth and Darren Sutherland appeared in both The Pilgrim and Maggie the Cat, featured in the background in an episode of The Warlord, Iron Man, a sequence called In Shining Iron, where he gets transported back to the Middle Ages and he becomes a knight in armor. I featured all of my buddies from the Seattle Knights and killed most of them off in horrible ways, but mostly myself. I think I died 3 times in that story.
You're going to forgive me for a second. We're going to get a little bit more than PG then. What the fuck, Mike? I haven't been killed. Steve at least killed me in a comic.
I haven't
now
killed
people
you
are
yet.
going to be lobbying.
You haven't killed me
for
yet.
this, yeah.
Oh well,
all your buddies are going to be looking for themselves on meat hooks. Yeah.
I want to at least
Yeah,
be
Steve Scott
eviscerated.
is
Come
one
on.
of
Steve is volunteering to have his throat cut.
Oh no,
There you go.
Steve's killed me in like 3 comics already.
Does that say something about your relationship?
Well, probably so.
No, it's like the Australians say. Okay, they when Australian guys are together, they love to take the piss out of each other. They just rag on each other endlessly. They call each other, "you old bastard." But the theory of that is that you don't do that with someone who you are not familiar with or that you don't like, because they might take offense. With a friend, you can say anything you damn well please, and you know that they know it's all just in good fun.
I do want to pass along to you too. She couldn't be here. It was date night with her boyfriend, but my daughter Krista wanted to tell you hi and tell you she loves
Hey,
you,
Krista.
and wanted to congratulate you on everything as well. I wanted to start that out before we even started the stream, but I want to make sure you knew about that too, because like I said, she considers you. I mean, you're Uncle Mike, so she wanted to make sure
Krista was actually the one who wielded the clippers when I did this.
She loves you to
By the
death.
way, I had one of the reasons why I decided to do that was because I got tired of that Friar Tuck look, where you got the hair horseshoe around
Don't
the back
lie.
and
No,
nothing
don't lie.
up on top. But I didn't know I was trading Friar Tuck for Uncle
Hold on.
Fester.
Yeah. Don't lie. What happened was he was here during Mardi Gras, and everybody knows what happens during Mardi Gras. There's sometimes the libations flow a little too easy, and he made a decision he might have regretted later.
Nope, haven't regretted it a bit. It saves so much time in the morning. I just have more face to wash.
Here's the weirdest part. Well, most people don't realize
our shampoo bill in half.
As Steve and Jeff can well attest, you don't realize how much cooler it is, even when you. Well, I don't know. Jeff's still trying to hang on, but
I'm happy. I am so happy to be the guy on this screen right now with the most hair.
But the funny,
that's not saying much.
With hair, period.
Which is you don't realize how much cooler it is without it. You just that little bit actually makes you 10 times hotter. You especially in the heat that's going on right now. Every degree makes a difference.
And think of all the thousands of dollars a year he's saving on shampoo.
Shampoo, haircuts.
You'll be rich in no time from the savings. Although I have to say, you know, I'm working with my artist in the UK on the next volume of the Robin Hood comic that I've been doing, and in the next volume, Friar Tuck finally appears, and I got to say, based on the conversation we've been having here in the past few minutes, it's like I don't know, Friar Tuck might look like somebody we know when he turns up in the comic.
And well, hey, like I said, I haven't had an appearance yet. Damn it.
Yeah.
We also have somebody else. He just messaged me earlier. He's actually at a convention right now. Hopefully, he's going to be able to show before we get a chance to do. But Scott Collins,
he's drunk.
Scott Collins has just messaged and to let you know, happy anniversary. And he's going to try to join in as long as we're still going. By the time he gets done breaking down his booth and getting back to his hotel room.
Great, Scott. Appreciate it. Thanks.
I don't know. It's a convention. He'll be at the bar.
I don't know, Scott. I got to give it to Scott. He was one of those true. Him and Jeff Johnson were down, and both of those guys were
Cheers,
some
Steve.
really
I need an
good guys.
excuse.
Like, really, you need an excuse? Sorry, I've had enough to drink now. This might get really bad.
Oh. Well, that's it. The after hours part of the show has just begun. And I was going to say, you know, with Mark Ryan, he was an old theater guy back in the 70s. I'm sure hanging from a meat hook in the sewers of New York is nothing to him.
And actually, out of all this, I'll tell you right now, me and Jeff had kind of conspired to bring some people in that you didn't know about. I know this is your idea to do this, Mike. And he and I conspired together to bring some people in to let you know what they meant, you know, what you meant to them. I hate to say
This
it.
is fantastic.
3:30 a.m.
Here.
Mark
Also,
was
also known as Steve's regular bedtime.
Mark was actually the one that slipped my mind. I should have gotten a hold of him. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, I didn't think either, but he's over there where Steve is.
I sent him a link.
Okay. Yeah, because he was one of the few. As soon as we started the stream, I'm like, crap, I did not get a hold of Mark to find out if he wanted to come in and be a part of this. Because, like I said, our whole thing here, I mean, this whole thing was your idea, but that was mine and Jeff's thing, was to make sure that you knew what you mean to a lot of people.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we wanted to share it with the fans. We wanted to make sure all the fans could see it and watch it live and throw in their little comments and things too. It's kind of fun.
You are taping this, right?
Yeah, actually, it's going to be on. So it will be from here on out. It will be on the Mike Grell Facebook page. It'll be on our page, the YouTube page. It's on
fantastic.
Twitter. It's on Instagram. I think we've got it going to all of them, so it'll be there for here on out. And plus, I'm recording it as we go, so I can send it to you as well if you want just the raw footage of it.
Thank you. And before anything else happens, I want to especially thank Steve Scott for doing the sign language for the hearing impaired.
They're always so animated, so he's really good at this. I
know
like that.
He is.
Well, I don't know. Actually, we were talking about things earlier, and hopefully you'll appreciate this. But we were sitting around here earlier. We had to drive about an hour away to go to a little show just to go support one of our local friends here. And as we had to go stop and get air in the tires. And as we were getting air in the tires, it was like $2 at the gas station. I was like, it's crazy. I remember back when you'd go to the gas station and, getting air in the tire was like free, or like 25 cents to get air in your tires. And as we're doing it, it finally dawned on me why it is so expensive.
I give up. Why?
Because of inflation.
Oh.
Sorry.
You are going to die in the most horrible way imaginable.
I had to. Come on.
That joke, Scott, that joke is like the bees that built the hive without an exit. It's unbelievable.
Oh, See, I didn't think my joke would get worse,
Oh
but
my
you did
God. You deserve everything that's coming your way. Really.
Yeah.
Mary didn't want to be in on this stream, but she's watching from the other room, and I just heard her laughing so hard.
You know what? If I can make Mary laugh, I'm good. I'm good. Y'all can sit there and get on me all you want, but if I make Mary laugh, I'm good.
There you go.
Oh my God. Sorry, that was one of the jokes I heard earlier, and I was like, I'm holding on to this. I have to wait for the right time.
There you go. You found it.
Oh, I'm going to bow out again for a little bit, but once again though, Mike, oh, crap,
I
hold
think
on.
Steve's bedtime has come up. He's trying to.
Steve's waving off 3:30. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Say your prayers. Okay.
He has to
Love you too,
unshackle
buddy.
his ankle from the drawing board and go
All right,
off to bed.
He's drunk. All right. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
it's good.
Life is drawing
is-
without an eraser.
Yeah.
Yep. You only get one pass at it. Might as well enjoy it.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get rid of him, or we'll let him go ahead and dip out so he can go home and or he's already home, but go home and get some sleep.
Well, let me just say now that he's gone, we can talk about him. No. I got to say one of the greatest things about my relationship with Mike in the past several years, I joke with a lot of people, is like we had the bright idea of starting, a company under Mike's imprint to publish and republish his works and to use crowdfunding and do all of stuff. We had this bright idea to do it just in time for a pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have been through thick and thin, and it feels like a decade, but it's only been 4 years. But the best and the worst part of it was the first. We did Maggie the Cat, and then we did the Pilgrim, and the Pilgrim started exactly 6 days before the pandemic closed everything. And Mark Ryan and Steve Scott and Mike and I were all, working towards getting this book finished. And as loony as that whole time was, that was one of the most fun experiences, was hopping on, video conference calls with all you guys and kind of working on a project that we had no idea how it was going to come together and whether or not we would, be facing all kinds of crises. And we did, but we overcame it. And, now I feel like now we're finally in a place where we can start operating without having to worry about all that, which is a nice relief, a nice place for us to be finally.
Yeah. We've just finished the second Kickstarter for the Sable Omnibus, and we raised a bunch of money, which is going to make it possible to go forward with other projects that we have down the line. More importantly than that, we have been fine-tuning our process to the point where now we're confident that the beat between printing and distribution is going to be very brief.
Yeah.
In the past, the distribution, the fulfillment has been a fly in the ointment. This first omnibus that we did, we ran into everything from supply chain issues. Oh my Lord, we had no idea how badly the lockdown was going to affect everything and everybody.
It became a ripple effect. Yeah.
Butterfly. Some damn butterfly way the hell back when.
That's right. Flapped its wings and
and it cost us everything. Printing prices went up astronomically, which forced us to raise our cover price. Fortunately, folks who got in on the Kickstarter still got their book at the regular Kickstarter price. But all that going forward is stuff that you have to take into consideration, and all of the obstacles that we had to overcome. It was quite an interesting learning period for all of us. But we're pretty fast learners, especially Jeff, who's got stuff figured out really pretty well.
Out of necessity. Yeah. It's like, who knew that it would take a pandemic to learn a whole new skill set, but
Yeah,
but there it is. Yeah. But
Who'd have
it's,
thunk it,
it's
right?
been, yeah, it's been crazy, but it's been a lot of fun seeing all of it come together, and just the reaction that fans, and I'm happy to see how you respond to it, is the fans when they see this new version of John Sable, or this remastered version. We haven't had a single person who say to us, "Oh, I didn't like it."
Yeah, that's true.
Universally, everybody thinks
Right.
it looks great.
We've been at several shows and heard a lot of complaints about what DC did with the Swamp Thing
Right.
edition, where they recolored everything digitally from
Yeah.
Tatiana Wood's amazing, beautiful colors, soft, subtle palettes. I mean,
Yeah. And they threw that modern kind of 3D color
Right.
effect into it. It just looks horrible.
And yeah, it just didn't feel the same. And
Yeah.
fans were really disappointed and put out by the result. And so I think we cracked it right on the head. Glenn Hallman, who did our remastering, is a fanatic for detail, and
Yeah.
he put his heart and soul, and then some, somebody else's heart and soul, I'm pretty sure, maybe sacrificed on an altar. Some un, unbelievable
We
God.
don't want to talk about that. Yeah. Who knows what
Yeah.
he's doing in his basement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you already know from my story with Torin that I know zero about computers. I
Right.
have one, and I know that if I turn it on, I can do things. I can type, I can surf the internet, and I can do things with a mouse. I can see that. You can't see that, but there it is.
Yeah.
Right now on my screen, I have a mouse crawling across that screen like crazy. That's about the extent of it. But Glenn is a wizard, and he was able to get back into the original files and make them look spectacular. Spencer Clausen, First Sable Omnibus is beautiful. I love it. Can't wait to hold volume 2. That big book looks great on the shelf. There you go.
Oh yeah,
It's
man.
going to look
And
even
Spencer,
better. Yep.
what
it's
a
gonna
what a
look
great
even
guy
better.
he is. We've hung out with him on the road and cons and things in the past. So many of your fans just want to hang out and talk about, they want to talk comics, but we talk about everything from the last time we hung out with a couple of fans, barbecue restaurants and just random life stuff.
Right.
I think that's the great charm of it, is just being able to hang out and have a good time with people. Spencer is one of those great people that we've hung out with recently.
Like Scott pointed out, we've known each other for years now, and we almost never talk about comics. We have
Yeah.
other things to talk about. Like we just talk about
Real
stuff because we're first and foremost we're buddies, and to my way of thinking, that's how you get to be friends with someone. I've met folks from all over. In fact, the weekend that I first met Mark Ryan, we were both attending a show called Anglicon in Seattle. I was there because I had just done the James Bond Permission to Die graphic novel, and the other guests were Michael Prade, Mark Ryan, and Ray Winston from Robin of Sherwood. And
Great show, by the way.
right, yeah, terrific show. If you haven't seen it, you should. When you see Mark Ryan in the role of the character Nazir, which he created from whole cloth, they asked him, "What kind of a character would you like to play?" Mark sat down with Kip Carpenter, who was the writer of the series, and he came up with this character. And ever since then, there has been an Arabic character in the Robin Hood legend, in the mythos. It's become
Right.
part of the lexicon, really, although it never existed until Mark Ryan came along. So my introduction to Mark, after sitting in on their panel, I corralled him and I said, "So, how long have you been in Seattle?" And he said, "Since Tuesday." And I said, "Well, what have you seen of the area? Because Seattle's really spectacular. There's everything from the Puget Sound, the islands, the mountains, terrific music scene, nightlife, everything." He said, "Nothing. Basically, they pick us up in the morning and they take us around to their friends and spend the day, and then they take us home and they get us up at about 8 o'clock in the morning." I went, "Okay, how about this? I'll get a town car and we'll go out and have dinner at the Space Needle and then in a couple of clubs, and but only one condition." And everybody looked at me like, "What?" I said, "For the whole night, nobody gets to talk about Robin Hood." I went, "You're on, mate." and that's how we got to be friends.
Yeah.
In the intervening years, we've shot guns together, shot bows together, rode horses up in the mountains. We've camped up above the snow line, damn near freezing to death, trying to get a fire started. Uh, and and through all of it, it's been because my approach to people is people are just people.
Yeah.
If you treat them just like people, they'll probably want to be your friend. And
And I'll give
that's the way it
you,
is with me.
you and I have talked about this before. You've always amazed me on how I was kind of hinted on it earlier. How I've watched you with fans, with people that are coming up, and with just I mean me in general, especially starting off. You have always treated everybody with courtesy and respect, and when somebody comes up to your booth, they feel like they've known you for years. You have that uncanny ability to connect with people. That is not something that's very easy to do. I'll give you a perfect example. I said we went to a show earlier today. I'm not going to call anybody out. There was a artist there I was very interested in buying stuff from, but I don't think he said two words to me the entire time I was looking through his portfolio. And instead, I ended up walking away. Whereas when I first met you, before I got to know you, when I first met you, we had a full on conversation before I even looked at the portfolio. Uh, like I said, it's something I remember it impeccably. I'm sure for you, I mean, you meet a ton of people, uh, but made me feel like I was special. I was somebody who meant something. I was actually worth something. And I've watched you with other people too. You have that uncanny thing. I don't think it's even uncanny. I just think you have that basic human decency that a lot of people seem to overlook and don't think they have to have.
Well, maybe it's part of my personal makeup. I want to be liked. I mean, all my life as a kid, I was pretty introverted. I mean, I was pretty shy, even though I loved to sing. When I was 4 years old, my grandfather would take me down to the local taverns, and I would sing for candy bars and pennies and dimes, and come back with my pockets loaded. My grandmother would say, "Okay, what did you have?" And I say, "I had pop. Grandpa had wiki." Uh, so there was, I guess, always natural born ham in there, but along with the natural born ham comes that thing that so many actors have, which is a deep down desire to be liked. And you can't make people like you if you're being a butthole, right? I mean, that's it. It just comes naturally. So over the years, I've I found that um, you notice that our conversations, like you said, never had anything, almost nothing to do with comics. That's because I'm more interested in people than I am in comics. I'm more interested in meeting someone new and hearing their story. That's how you make friends that last. that sure there's going to be super fan from wherever who comes in, oh blah 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 blah, love your stuff, blah blah blah, sign my books, whatever, and off he goes, and never makes a ripple. You never see him again because he's got what he came for. He's looking for that autograph, complete his collection, or increase the value of something or other. But the guys who hang around and talk, they hang around and talk for a reason, and that's because generally, I hope they're interested in me, and them being interested in me, the least I can do is return that interest and pay attention to what they're saying. It's not always easy at shows, as Jeff will attest, and Mary, who is still out in the other room, I hope she may have fallen asleep by now. She's heard me babble on like this for hours and hours. But I always tell Mary that, yeah, they come for me, but they stick around for her because she's got a natural charm and a way of making people feel welcome. Oftentimes, I have my head down on the drawing board and I'm busy working and I'm oblivious. I've got the hat on, so I don't see who's right there in front of me. At one point, I had probably the world's largest collection of belt buckles because I would look up and I would see somebody's belt buckle and I go, hey, how much you want for that? Or I'll give you a sketch, give me your belt buckle. One kid, he was like 12, 15 years old. I had to write a note to his mom explaining what happened to his belt buckle. He came home with a sketch for thank you for the belt buckle on the bottom of it. But Mary's natural charm and her grace when it comes to dealing with crowds draws people in, makes them feel welcome so that they'll stick around long enough for me to look up from my work. Occasionally she has to kick me in the leg or pat me on the thigh or something like that in order to get my attention. But it's her way of letting me know, yeah, pay attention to these folks, right? And Jeff, in Mary's absence, has stepped into the role with great aplomb. And he doesn't look as good in a skirt, but that's fine.
I don't know. I kind of want to see Jeff in a skirt now.
Yeah, I do have some Scottish heritage, so I could justify it.
I didn't think Phil was his skirt.
No, right away, I'm having a problem here. I was just going for a joke, and now you've given me
we let Scott refill too many times.
All right, I'm sorry. No, we'll tell you.
That's all right.
I will tell you this. Get away. You still tell the joke, but I will say this is how much you mean to people. We actually had a gentleman drove 2 hours to the shop today because he kind of misread the post about the stream tonight.
Oh,
he drove 2 hours thinking you were going to be here.
Oh,
and when he showed up, we had explained to him, no, that it was for a live stream, and he's like, wait, I get to watch him on a live stream? He goes, that's even better. I get something to listen to and watch on my way home.
Oh. Well, at least he's looking on the sunny side.
If he's in an accident, he's going to blame us.
Well, his wife was driving. There's some long time, but he did. He drove 2 hours thinking that you were going to be here. Like I said,
Lord.
he'll flat out tell you it was his fault. He kind of glanced through and misread everything. But
where did he drive from?
He drove from over Louisiana.
Wow.
But he, like I said,
ask him which one of the prints he wants.
Well, I'll talk
Don't
to
tell
him.
anybody else.
Well, you kind of just did, but
crap.
but I mean, he did. I mean, that's how much you mean to people. Is he was actually okay with driving 2 hours coming here, and you not being here, but he was able to come on, and he's actually commented on some of the stuff already, but be able to come on and watch the stream and everything else.
Well, and I'll tell you, I'll add to that, and I'll kind of tell Mike is selling himself a little bit short at the conventions too. He's always head down. He's always working, no matter how long the day is, 8 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours, you name it, you know, he will not stop. And he is always working. He's always coming up with a different way of doing his craft, which is amazing to watch. These recent sketches he's been doing, are inspired. And it's just because one day at a con he was a little bored and he started doing this variation on his sketches. People come up and nobody is bothered that he's looking down and working. People stand there with their mouths open watching the process. And and I'll even say to them, and I know Mary does too, just give them a minute to find a good place to stop, and they're like, no, I just want to stand here and watch, because they are so in awe of the craft of what he's doing. And like I said, I think he sells himself a little bit short.
He does. I mean, honestly, probably one of the most. I mean, for being, and you may not like to use this word, but I will say, being the icon you are in this industry, you are probably one of the most humble people I've ever met, most down to earth, just a real person. You don't have to. I say this all the time. I mean, throughout doing this, I get to meet a lot of people, and I've kind of said the people that have egos shouldn't, and the people that should have egos don't. You are the epitome of that. Out of anybody that I've ever known throughout this entire time I've been in the comic book industry, there's been a lot of people who I've met who should have egos and do. I won't name out any names. You and I have talked about them before, but you're one of the very few who deserves to have an ego, and you don't. You are actually so appreciative of everybody that comes along that I got to give it to you. It's fantastic.
My whole career, my whole life has been a blessing, really. I am the son of a northern Wisconsin, a lumberjack, and a barmaid. My mom and dad worked their tails off all their lives and struggled like crazy, and they always supported me. I think initially my mom was hoping that I would come to my senses and get a real job, until the year that she found out that I had paid more in taxes than they made in income that year. And then it was okay. And since then she would make excuses for me. She would say, "That's all right, son. You're an artist." Okay, carte blanche from mom, right? Free reign to do anything I damn well please. Well, it's a case of I am what I am, and where I came from made me what I am.
You almost
Never saw
became Popeye
TV
for a
until
second.
what's that?
You almost became Popeye for a second.
Yeah, what I am.
Popeye.
I am what I am.
Oh,
That's all that I am. Sorry, I had to.
I am what I am.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I where I came from, 100 miles north of Green Bay, tiny little town. Population is down to about 490 right now, from a high of about 1,200. There's maybe 12, maybe as many as 2,500 people in the county. Graduating class of 84. That sort of thing. I know I didn't graduate in 84. There were 84 people in my graduating class. But for all of that, I never saw TV until I was 8. We didn't get one until I was 11. And that one station that would come in was from Marquette, Michigan, where the second language programming was Finnish. That's Suomi kutsu, which means Finland calling. Some things stick with you whether you want to or not. And so the TV would stay on all day long, no matter what it was, just because it was something, right? But I grew up initially with radio, which helped form my, I think, imaginative creativity. I would picture these people doing these things, like hear the voices and see the movie in my head, see the pictures, see them actually walking around, and I would cast various cast members as people that I knew. Mr. Keene, Tracer of Lost Persons. I had a sidekick named Mike. Well, at 6 years old, I was Mike, and Mr. Keene was my grandfather. Just made perfect sense as far as I was concerned. We had comic books, we had comic strips, we had movies. Movies were great. Saturday matinee, right? Mom and dad would send the kids off to the theater with a quarter each, 10 cents to get in, a nickel each for popcorn and soda pop, and a nickel left over to buy penny candy. Now, penny candy wasn't a penny a piece. It was like 3 for a penny or 5 for a penny. Some of the really nasty stuff, like the little licorice pieces, you get as many as 10 for a penny. And if you were down to your last penny and you were wondering, yeah, I got another couple of days to go until Saturday, you would spend it on those licorice pieces, right? But for all of that, you get into the movie, you get 2 cartoons, a short feature like Three Stooges, sometimes a serial chapter, and oftentimes a double feature because, face it, Saturday matinees were babysitters back in the 1950s. And a nickel back from your quarter to keep you spinning like a dervish for the rest of the week. That 5 cents change really came to mean a lot to me. And that's the name of another company that I have called 5 Cents Change Entertainment. And we'll go into that another time. But those roots, the hard times, the simple times, mean so much to me that when I go back there to my hometown, the tavern that my mom worked in is still there. The decor has changed ever so slightly. I think they reupholstered the bar stools, and that's about the extent of it. And I go through the town. I meet people that I've known all my life, but maybe I don't know them. Maybe I know their parents. Maybe I know their grandparents. The last time I did a personal appearance back there, Mary and I were in Wisconsin for my 50-year class reunion. And I was telling the story, and that folks asked me, what was it like growing up in Florence, Wisconsin in the 1950s? And I started by telling them, well, for starters, we didn't have television when I was a kid. I never saw TV until I was 8, didn't get one until I was 11. There's one little guy in the front row who was appalled. He's like, what did you watch? You go outside and watch the storms, watch rain clouds coming, sit on the porch and watch thunderstorms come in. There was never a shortage of what to do. We would create stories, the Little Green Army Men. We'd stage whole battles, whole scenarios. When they came out with the Tarzan toys, basically the same model. They had the lion, they had Tarzan and cheetah and everything else, and an elephant, whatever. I had strings hung from the lilac bush out in front, and Tarzan would swing from this branch to that branch. They would drop on top of the line and have a fight. It's all creative stuff. The worst thing you could say to your mom when you were a kid was, I'm bored, because she would find something to cure your boredom. And it almost always involved cleaning your room. So we were never bored.
All right, Mike, somebody else has just joined in, and they apparently want to come in and say or wish you a happy anniversary as well. Mr. Dave DeVries.
Dave. Good night, Mike. Thanks. Thank you for being here. Oh my God, what time is it there?
It's coming up to midday in South Australia. It'd be in the eastern states. It'd be just after 12.
Not so bad. Not so
no,
bad.
it's a good time to do it. What's it there? About 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, something like that.
Just past 9. Yeah.
But yesterday.
Yep. Yesterday.
You're living in the future.
Yeah.
Okay. From now on, you have to tell me who won that football game.
Which one? The one last night or on?
No, the one in the future, because
I see.
you're a day ahead. I got to get my bet down before it airs.
That's a good thought. Yeah, if I want to watch the NFL, I got to get up at bloody 4 a.m. on a Monday. So it's.
Dave and I met back in 87, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Were you doing Southern Squadron then?
Yep, Southern Squadron was created in '83, and that was that's right. You were there doing a signing of Longbow Hunters at the same time that we were launching. The Southern Squadron had appeared in Cyclone, which was an anthology, and then with issue 9, it took over the title a little bit like Spider-Man took over Amazing Tales, and we kept the numbering, but we sort of called it the first issue of the team, and so. For Jeff and Scott. So we had this big signing at King's Comics, which was at the time probably the biggest comic specialty store in Sydney. And we just all kind of clicked. Mike was, he was doing his thing, we were doing ours, and we just all got on. I think you suggested we get over to the States for the next San Diego Con. That was back in the days when it was fun. And that was awesome, and that's when we met John Ostrander and so many people who ultimately were along with Mike, the reasons why we got into comics in the States. Todd McFarlane, a whole bunch of those guys. Without them, we wouldn't have picked up the work that we did. So it was all due to you, mate.
See, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little dumbfounded because I remember reading Southern Squadron. I still have a lot of it in our back issues now. We still have people come and pick them up. So thank you very much. I've really enjoyed your stuff.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I got a mate in the pub here. I live in the Barossa, which is a little bit like the Napa Valley. It's sort of a wine growing region. And there's a number of pubs here, as you can imagine. Pub culture is still very strong in Australia. And I was chatting to this guy, and he was originally from Birmingham in not Alabama, but in England. And we were chatting about comics, and like you, Scott, he'd actually read the Southern Squadron and was a bit of a fan. And I'd known this guy for probably 15 years and had no idea that he was a comic book reader. So it's
one of our guys we had on here earlier was somebody who turned me on to it, a guy by the name of John Dell. John came on earlier, and he was the one that turned me on to Southern Squadron. So yeah, I love this stuff.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're actually bringing out, we're revisiting the characters after 40 years. So I'll make sure that I keep Mike in the loop on that, and he can let you know when things are like we're going to have some Kickstarters and you can read the books, like on PDF form if getting. Because the cost of mailing things to the States now has just become insane. The prices are just getting out of control. But I'm getting more and more used to reading comics online now.
Well, actually, once this is done, we need to get into contact.
Sure.
I talk business while we're doing this, but we'll get into contact because there is a print on demand place here that I am good friends with who could help you out with distributing stuff over here.
Cool. No, I'd like that. That'd be good. Oh, there's Gary.
Dave is hiding part of his light under a bushel. Besides being a comic creator, he is a filmmaker, writer, director, producer.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm also a politician.
All right, I'm done.
I wasn't going to mention that.
Seriously, I'm the deputy mayor of the Barossa.
I wasn't going to mention that part, but yes,
But trust
yes,
me.
he is.
You have to understand, we're in the States, if you mention politician, we're all done.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I got to tell you one of my favorite stories. Years back, went to visit Dave in Barossa Valley, and as we the normal thing in Australia is about 10 o'clock in the morning. It's time for a beer, right?
Right.
It's time for a beer. Well, we hit the road early and did a wine tour, and down there they don't expect you to taste it and spit it out. It's perfectly fine to just whack it back and enjoy it. So noon rolls around and we're okay. I was pretty happy by then. And we finally rolled back into Dave's town, Tanunda, and go into a place called the Tanunda Pub. And the barman meets us at the door, looks at Dave and says, "You're light." And Dave made excuses saying, "Yeah, well, we got delayed, blah, 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 whatever." And so we sit down, and I'm pretty sure it was Dave who ordered beers all around. And we're sitting at this table, and the beer comes, and it's a little teeny tiny 6-ounce glass of beer with a paper umbrella stuck through a maraschino cherry in it. I went, "What the hell is that?" And Dave said, "You ever had one of those? It's a Spitzenroder." Spitzenroder? What the hell is a Spitzenroder? He says, Spitzenroder, Hoitzenroder. I went, "What?" He said, "Well, it's hot down here, so we drink our beers small so we can get it in us before it gets warm." I went, "Trust me, I can get it in me before it gets warm." And he says, "Okay, but you get the next round." I went, "Okay, whatever." So we finish ours. Oh, actually, before that, I hold my glass up like this. I said, that's like a poof drink. And I hear this sound like all the air being sucked out of the room. And I turn around, and there's about 30 other people in the bar at noon because it's Australia, right? And every one of them has one of these things in their fist. And I went, "Okay, you get the next." He says, "Okay, you get the next round." All right. I go up, chatting up the barmaid while the barman is pumping for me. I told him I wanted 4 Hoitzenroders, right? Like, yes, right? Pitcher, right? 4 Hoitzenroders. And so barmaid comes over, she's chatting me up, distracting me. And the barman turns around, slams down 4 pitchers, and says, "That'll be $100. And the whole place cracked up. They had set me up. They had to order those glasses 2 months in advance, not to mention the maraschino cherries and the paper umbrellas. Turns out that it's either Spitzenroder or Hoitzenroder is the attorney next door, right?
That's Hoitzenroder, yeah.
Yeah.
But you brought that on yourself, mate, because you were taking us to the Unicorn in Seattle. And Mike and his mate, what was his name? Who was the Scottish guy there? Who was the
Angus Robson?
Angus, that's right. Yeah, and you were sort of talking about how this is how you drink real beer. So we said, okay, we'll show you how to drink real beer in Australia. But instead of yeah, these little glasses. They were teeny tiny, and yeah, what we did was the idea was to set it up so that Mike would get the last round, and we would buy these little tiny ones. And when he asked why have you got the why have you got the maraschino cherry, we said, oh well, the beer's a little bit bitter in Australia, so like you put lemon in the wheat beer, well we put this in, and then Mike had his girlfriend with him at the same time, and they said, what about the umbrella? And I said, again, it's because it's so hot here, that's to keep the sun off the beer. And he went, bullshit. And I said, yeah, no, we're kidding.
Oh my God.
We said, no, this is actually because, we've got this reputation for being sexist, and it's a way to get the girls back in the front bar. And I can't remember your girlfriend's name at the time, but she went, oh, that's lovely. And so it kind of made it feel real. And then Glenn said, oh, well, look, I've got a drawer full of these back home. If you want them, you can help yourself. So by the time it got round to Mike, these big glasses that he set up, they must have been almost over a litre in size. They were these big German things, which were just enormous.
Yeah.
And also $20 a glass back then was, there must have been 5 of us. That's right. And yeah, $20 back then was like, $100 back then would have been like maybe $400 today. And, so it was I think it wiped out your credit, your traveler's checks or something like that. And
I don't doubt it for a second.
So
the upside.
Oddly enough, I've heard this story before, and I actually have a piece of artwork right here. We actually have a brewery inside of our comic shop.
Yeah.
And we actually did a tart cherry rum ale.
Yeah.
And Mike did this piece of artwork, which is a cricket with a cherry with an umbrella.
Yeah. Well, what was hilarious was that half the guys in the bar I didn't know. And what Mike didn't tell you is, as we were walking in, I walked in and I looked around, and it was like there was about, as he said, about 30 guys all with these umbrellas, and it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And nobody broke character. Everybody was completely ignoring us. And although the barman was getting a little bit too, I think he was a lovely guy, Greek bloke, but he was a little bit too enjoying the role. But fortunately, Mike didn't sort of click straight away. So when those beers all came down, clunk, 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 it was just like wham. And oh man, everybody loved it. And then he raced back after he realized he'd been had. He raced back to his girlfriend and said, how much money have we got? And then he said, I want to buy Horts and Rotors for the entire bar. And they said, well, we literally only have these 5. And so he said, all right, then what's the biggest glass you've got? And then everybody got a pint. And he said, but there's one condition: they all have to have a maraschino cherry and an umbrella. And they did it. And this got written up in the local papers. It was a lot of fun.
I have to confess, I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
But to this day, if you go to Tanunda, to the Tanunda pub, and you want to order a 6-ounce beer with a maraschino cherry, in a paper umbrella, you order a Spitzenreiter. If you want to, if you want to order the full pitcher, you order a Hortzenroder. If you want to order the 6-ounce with an umbrella and the maraschino cherry, you order a Grell. I always wanted to have a drink named after me, but
that was
like
fun.
It's like what Mark Twain said about being ridden out of town on a rail. If not for the honor of the thing, I'd as soon have passed.
Yeah. That was fun. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, it was just the fact that the pub just played along and it was really, I just said that with the barman a few days earlier. Oh, there's Gary. And
Gary, yeah. You're from Seattle. Fond memories to a point that I don't remember a thing. Yeah.
I remember Gary was telling me he was trying to drink the wall, I think it was something like 90 odd beers that you had to work your way through. And so he decided he'd pick off the hard ones first, and he'd get the heaviest black ales, and then he'd find the lightest Pilsner and then black and tan them. That was the sort of an intelligent way to get through the tough ones. So.
Angus Robson, who ran the Unicorn Pub, was a great old raconteur. He had so many stories and so many friends from different walks of life. He would gather them in every now and then and have a party. And he didn't necessarily know everyone, but he knew that they were interesting. And he would say, the reason you're here is because you were interesting. So he had a roll, 2-inch wide roll of masking tape and a magic marker. You're supposed to write your name on it, tape it on your chest, and go around, get acquainted with folks. There was everyone from every walk of life you could possibly imagine. There was a bus driver baritone who had a magnificent operatic voice. There was a kid who was a child prodigy on the violin. There was another fellow who had actually owned a Stradivarius and brought it one night to the pub, and this kid played it. Like 20 odd years old at the time, but been playing like that since he was a child. Friends of his would gift him wine that was worth thousands of dollars, and it was nothing to have him call in and invite us to a party where there would be maybe $15,000 worth of wine open that night. And talk about pearls before swine. Considering me, the one time I stepped in was he had a split of a truce for a small party of 5 people, and there was just enough for 2 swallows for everybody. And one guy took a sip and said, "I don't like it," so I'll take that. So I had 4 swallows. But that Angus could draw people in like that, and so he had a thing. What was it? Beers of the World Club. Like you had to drink 40 beers in order to qualify for the club.
So it wasn't that.
Yeah,
I think I'm confused with another pub. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I took Dave and Gary there, and the thing is, they could have finished it in one night, except when they found a beer that they liked, they would have 2 or 3 more of that beer.
Sure.
And
yeah.
You took us to a Scotch joint too that was really good in Seattle. Just every wall was lined with Scotch or something. What was that one?
I honestly don't remember.
Yeah.
By that point, it was probably too late.
Yeah.
So I left them. I left them there because I had to go back to the studio and get a bit of work done. I was only 4 or 5 blocks away, right? And I get a phone call at closing time. It is Dave. Hi, Mike. Do you know where we are? Like, no. Oh, and I know where you are. You're not at the Unicorn? No, they closed that. Like, oh. So when you left the Unicorn, which way did you go? Oh, I think we went to the right. How far? Next door. So I I go next door, picked him up at another pub, and as we're making our way out, Gary was looking at all the half-empty beers left on the table and going, "What a waste!" And he was reaching up, grabbing them, and finishing them off. And the next day, he paid the piper. I think that was the day I introduced him to Bloody Mary. I had to rescue everybody from the Seattle Zoo, and I took Gary to a bar where I could get him a Bloody Mary, and he's like, but once he got the first one in, he started to feel much better. He goes, "I have another." I mean, no. You're gonna ruin the whole purpose of this. Just stick where you are and you'll be fine.
Oh, too funny.
It's our culture. It's sad, but there you have it.
It's all that pressure from living in the future.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, the pub culture is a really big part of Australian life. Sadly, it's the younger generations not doing it as much, but places certainly in the country, in the rural areas, you'll see it more and more. I've got 3 pubs in Tanunda and Tanunda's tiny. It's only like about 5,000 people, and I reckon in the main street, I've lost count, but there are 3 pubs that I can just wander into, and I choose them depending on who I want to have a drink with. I don't know who's specifically going to be there, but I know that this group of guys will be there at one point. And there's one pub that's kind of deliberately looks run down so that the ladies won't go in there, and they keep telling us we need to fix it. We go, no, we really it's the last bastion of testosterone in the valley. But then we've got a couple of wine bars, and there's one that I take my wife to called Z Wines, and that's just, you walk in and you get hit with the estrogen. It's just like it looks like something out of the Reformation period in Britain. It's awesome, and I would say there's about 5 or 6 wine bars in the main street as well, and then a lot of restaurants where you can just pop in and grab a drink and coffee and that. And so our culture. Alcohol is such a part of our life here, that if you talk to someone and they say, "Oh, so like how many alcohol-free days do you do in a week?" and you can say 3 or 4, that's considered to be, wow, you're good.
Wow. Alcohol-free days.
Yeah, that's a real thing. It's
there we go. Look at this.
Oh gosh, there
Southern
it is.
Squadron.
And
Scott went and dug that up. I have one of those in my collection as well.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
You did a couple of covers for that. I remember, Mike. There was also.
Yeah, I did.
I'm not going to lie. I actually went to our back issues and pulled it up and scanned it in.
Nice.
And this one here was, I don't know if you can see it. Jerry Ordway did that one, which I think you set that up, didn't you, Mike? He just did it because he thought it would be fun to do a superhero cover for an Australian comic, and it was just a lovely, lovely thing that he did. We got very good friendship there as a result. We've got a lot of different covers from different artists over the years. I think Gary got Todd McFarlane did one for one of his books as well.
Well, if I was thinking, y'all had Paul Galassi do quite a few too, didn't
you? Yeah. I met Paul in, I think that same trip that we came over. We stayed with Mike, and then he loaned us a car, and we drove down. We became friends with Steve Matson, and Paul and I just really clicked well, and so he did a couple of covers, and then he and I ended up doing a series for Dark Horse, The Thing from Another World.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a little short Southern Squadron story as well. So
interesting how comics bring people together from so many different walks of life, from so many areas in the world. And as a kid, I never would have believed, never would have dreamed that I would meet people on the other side of the earth.
I mean, it's an incredible
never told
medium.
me the secret of how you hang on with your toes, keep from falling off.
Well, it's an incredible medium, and I'll tell you. I mean, like, I'm not artistically inclined whatsoever, which you know very well. But just from having a shop, and I've always said for a long time, I don't have clientele. I have extended family. A lot of these people I deal with, they come in. I'm dealing with the children of the people I dealt with 25 years ago. So it becomes a thing. And in the age of the digital medium, you were talking earlier about the AI and everything else. In an age of a digital medium, people that work analog are kind of the rare thing. John, who was on here earlier, John still inks with a brush. He doesn't do any type of digital stuff whatsoever. And it's one of those things where, as I've gotten older, and I'm sorry, I feel like I'm talking about age and everything else, but I've gotten older. I learned to appreciate more of the stuff where you actually have a physical thing to hold on to afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's coming back. I really do, because we all kind of got into the digital thing because it gave us a lot of opportunities. And I guess one of the advantages is you can modify things, correct them, present them in different formats. It's quick. It's easy to transport. There are all of those sort of advantages, which became great. But ultimately, you don't own anything. It's just ones and zeros. Some of my prized possessions, you can't see the room, obviously, but, like a printed limited edition print from Jack Kirby, signed by Jack. I mean, that's an artifact that if this house started to burn, that would be one of the first things that would, get thrown out the window. These things are, I think, the physical artifacts, I think, are important. And one day, who knows, the net could get wiped out or destroyed. And I mean, it would never disappear, but it could get cleaned and then have to be re-established. And old comics and old ideas, which are sort of, you think are permanent, you'll never see them again, But if the book exists in a library somewhere, then that book exists forever and can be recreated. So I'm a big fan.
I agree. And I look at it too. I mean, if you look at even like the music industry, vinyl has made a big comeback.
Absolutely, yeah.
And even now, we have our customers that come in from a retail standpoint. We have our customers that come in, and a lot of them they do prefer the digital things, but they also want to have that tangible thing, that collectible thing, that nostalgia, that they still have something to cling on to, something they enjoy.
I think the other thing is it was the experience. Like, for example, if you had like the Led Zeppelin 4 album, you owned that. It was yours. So you had a small part to play in that album becoming successful. So their success was in part because you put your money down. You felt like you had a stake in it. You put the album on and you start listening to the tracks, and you listen to them in the order that they were intended to be played. And you often found this, that there was a song on the album that you might not have liked, but it was too much of a hassle to get up and move over and jump the needle. These days, everybody just skips. And you go, okay, I'll listen to it. And you read the big album cover and do all of that stuff. Yeah. And then at some point you realize, when you've heard that song half a dozen times, actually, that's probably the best song on the album. But because it didn't have that immediate sort of hook, you missed it. Kids, and they reckon that music's getting dumber as a result. It's less complex. There's less harmonics. You can go through all of the studies on it, and they say it's because music has been written now to survive the first 40 seconds of the listener. And if the listener is not hooked in by that stage, they just skip through that track. And you're not listening to the tracks in the order that they were intended, where there was a story that was being told. It's like everything's being jumbled up.
Well,
don't get me wrong. I love listening to free music, but it's not the same.
Well, yeah. Now, if you can't put it on TikTok and be viral, they don't care.
It's fleeting, though. I think a lot of this stuff is temporary, and like the comeback of vinyl, I think, is because tangible, being able to hold something, being able to hold a comic, and Dave's right. I own this. If it's in the cloud, it's just sort of in theory. But practical is being able to hold it.
Well, I mean, I'll give you a perfect.
That's a relationship.
A perfect example with comics, and I guarantee you, as soon as I say this, every one of you are going to know what I'm talking about. The younger generation is not. There is a certain smell when you open an older comic.
Yeah.
As soon as you open it, and as soon as you smell that, it takes you back to when you were 6 years old and reading your first book. Like I've said this numerous times, if somebody could bottle it and make a cologne out of it, I guarantee you about 99% of 30-year-old plus males would buy it, because it's something that means something to them.
Yeah.
What's your view of people putting them in slabs? And I think it's the dumbest idea I've ever seen. I like the comic being buggered. I remember when Mike was signing and he actually accidentally creased somebody's comic cover, and the kid, his face, he was worried about spinal roll or whatever. And I just said, Mike, just write this cover was personally creased by Mike Grell, and he did it. And then he drew a little face of Warlord, and then suddenly that became the most valuable book in the store.
So as a retailer coming into this, being a retailer for almost 30 years now, it's a whole different generation of collector that comes in. Like for me personally, we actually talked about this earlier on the stream. I actually only own one slab book personally myself. Uh, and I'll let you. I mean, it was the very first comic I bought with my own money, and the only reason I have it was because Mike signed it with some very inappropriate things, and I had wanted to make sure that was in the PGC database.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I have it slabbed. And this is the way I tell everybody that comes in to buy books. Everybody's wanting to come in. They're wanting to buy the next thing is to be worth $1 million. And my advice to them is buy what you like to read. If it goes up in price, you got a bonus. Where we live, we have a lot of casinos here, and I tell people all the time, if you're looking to make an investment, take the same amount of money you're going to spend on the comic, put it in a slot machine. You got about the same odds, and you get a quicker return on your money.
What was that? I think that X-Men with Jim Lee and Chris Claremont that did 7 million units. And I remember John Ostrander telling me that he said there's only 700,000 people in the world, English-speaking world, that read comics at that time. I don't know what the number is now. And this is 7 million. So it's like, okay, so I didn't have one. So somebody had obviously my 10.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. In our back issues, we have over 200 long boxes that we sell for $1 a piece, and we do 10 for $1 sales all the time.
Yeah.
And about 95% of them is stuff that came out in the 90s, which is the heyday of comics. Where what it boils down to is for every person that wants one, there's 1,000 available to them.
Yeah.
Yep, that's about it.
I mean, there are those few rare ones in between, but that's the majority of them.
Sure. Back in the 80s, there was a guy in Milwaukee who he was a dealer at the time, small time, but soon to be big time. And he came up to me and he said, I just scored so big time. He said, really? He goes, oh, yeah. Yeah. Marvel's first new superhero character since the 60s. And I got 1,200 copies. 1,200. I said, what is it? He said, Dazzler number 1.
Yeah, I can see you going with it.
You know, if you're buying on speculation, you're buying for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
There something that exists in an edition of 100,000, 150,000, 200,000. It's not a collectible. It is not something that's really limited, like our 50th anniversary prints. Only 50 copies available.
Speaking of which, I'm gonna one up you on the prints. If anybody who's still listening or wants to watch this on replay, if you decide to order one, you want to mention the Mike Grell page on Facebook or social media. I'm gonna add something to it, just for free. We're gonna go ahead and put one of your Shadow Band covers.
Oh, cool.
Oh my goodness!
That you did.
Wow.
So if they're listening to this
yeah, that was
stream,
a Pensacon exclusive.
Yeah, it was our shop and Pensacon exclusive. And if they want to order it, if they mention in the message, if they want to order it through the Jeff's page, or through the Mike Grell page, or through us, they mention the stream here, we'll put one of those in there for free.
Wow. Nice.
That's great.
Very nice.
Not very many of those made.
No, they were very, very limited on them. So
that is a collectible.
So we'll even actually randomly we'll throw in the Virgin and the black and white cover too.
So just to look back a couple of minutes, when you talk about the way comics used to feel and smell, Jeff seen me do this. Somebody will bring me an old beat up, raggedy ass copy of whatever and be all apologetic for the condition. And I'll tell them,
it's well loved.
This is what I want to see in a comic book. This is what a comic book should be. It should be well read, well loved. The wrinklier, crinklier, raggedy ass, more beat up it is, the more I love it. And I'll open it up and it just go, because when you do that, you're breathing in your childhood.
Oh yeah.
There's a scene in the movie Highlander where he cracks a bottle of wine from 1783 or something like that, and he sniffs the air and he says, you know, a whole litany of what was happening in that year. That's the air that's inside that bottle, right? Well, for me, that's the air from my childhood. We all breathe that in when we're lying on our tummies in front of the TV set, if you're lucky enough to have one. Eventually, we did. So, you know, you're reading your comics on the living room floor like all kids do, like all comics are really supposed to be read. These days, it's either mostly in the John or they're not read at all. Unfortunately, I hate the idea of comics that are bought just to be collectibles because
Yeah.
the 1990s when they started selling them in plastic bags that only valuable as collectible if you never open that bag, so you never read the comic, so you never had a vested interest in the story. So what are you buying the book for? Only for the collectible value. And of course, first time some kid walked into a store and tried to sell back a book for more than he paid for it, the shop owner probably hauled out a long box and said, "Kid, I got all you want for 50 cents a piece." Like,
But
very,
we're incredibly lucky because not only do we do that, but we can open that book and we usually know the guys who created it, or if not all of them, at least most of them. And so
that's
I find when
that's
I'm
the
reading that
most
book, I'm
incredible part.
remembering my time with Archie Goodwin or with yourself, or and that's such a powerful thing as well. And I must admit, like my kids are now in their 30s, but my youngest, he was a bit of a comic fan. And our, father son thing was we used to go because we in the Barossa, we're about half an hour from the nearest um, theatre. So we'd go down to the Megaplex and watch the various different, Marvel and DC movies that came out over the years. And they were fun. I mean, these days most of them suck. I'm sad to say, but but prior to COVID in particular, what we would do is we'd drive down. It would take half an hour, so we'd chat and inevitably we'd talk about the creators who created the books that the comics that the films were based on. Often I'd sort of Facebook those, we'd been chatting about Deadpool. I'd be talking to Fabian, that sort of thing. It just sort of gave it that real sense of personal relevance. And then you're kind of curious to see what the filmmakers made with the stories. Then we'd tear the films apart or enjoy them, going through them afterwards on the drive home. But I love that because it was great to sort of see the comics come to life. And to me, watching those movies, I couldn't divorce myself from the people who created the comic characters originally, and that's something that I really loved. I must admit, now that everything's getting racially and gender flipped and so forth, I feel less aligned with it because that's not the characters as I remember them. And that's not to say it's good or bad. It's just different. But I do love that idea of consuming not just the films but the comics and connecting with not just the childhood but the creators themselves and that whole period in our lives.
Let me ask you this: like in the age of social media, and everything else, where it's so easy to get in touch with these creators, and I'll use Mike as a perfect example. Growing up, Mike was that iconic person, that he was that person on the pedestal that I adored growing up, loved his artwork, loved his writing, and everything else. I mean, fortunately for me, it wasn't through social media where I got a chance to be friends and be close with him. But it was like seeing all this stuff now where everybody feels they have a voice, where on social media where they can get in touch with any creator they want. And I'm trying to stay away from being political on this, but with the whole cancel culture and everything else, where if you say the wrong thing, how do you feel that social media has made an impact on how people are portrayed or how they write things?
If you're looking to contact me on social media, you won't. Okay.
I know that.
Yeah.
Jeff is my face on social media. Jeff and my webmaster, Stephen Legg. I do not do Facebook. I have no interest in ever doing it. I seriously considered naming Mark Zuckerberg co-respondent in my last divorce. It's like, no, it is just absolutely not for me. Now, I understand it's a valuable tool for people who use it and use it well. And I have numerous friends who do just exactly that. They know how to do it. They know how to manage the platform. They manage the content. They supervise everything like Jeff does, and it works out. It works out great. But I don't want to get involved in it on a personal level. I don't want to turn it into a, well, Mike Grell said this and Mike Grell said that. What I say is not necessarily as important as what I do. Okay. How to put this another way? I've been highly opinionated in a lot of ways in my writing in comics. But as a storyteller, it's not my job to answer the questions. My job is to raise the questions.
Yes.
If I can stimulate someone enough that they will raise the question and seek out an answer, I hope they'll call me and let me know what the answer is. I don't have the answer. My answer is usually my hero saves the day by doing something usually at least moderately violent, which is not really the solution. But if I can raise questions and make people ask themselves, what is this really about? Issues that we raised in Green Arrow. And we tackled everything from human trafficking, sex trade, gay bashing, political anomalies like the Iran-Contra scandal, which was hysterical, really. There's a story about that. I'll come to it in just a minute. But what we were doing at that time really was pushing the envelope, which was in no small portion thanks to Dick Giordano. I did a story in Green Arrow where a young girl had been trafficked from a biker gang in Canada to one in Florida. This is based on a true story. And everybody seems to think I make this stuff up out of whole cloth because of some misogynistic attitude that I have. Anyone who ever met my wife, Mary, will know that I'm the furthest thing from a misogynist. I'm not interested in women as victims. I'm only interested in independent, intelligent, strong women, which describes her to a T. When I did that story, Mike Gold brought it to Dick Giordano and said, "It's pretty powerful stuff. So what do you think we should do?" And Dick said, "Push the envelope," and we did. And oh my Lord, it's probably one of the best reviews I ever got, even though they didn't mention my name. We were written up by New York Times and Time Magazine in the same week, mentioned by the title. One of them called it, I want to get this exactly right, borderline pornography pandering to the prurient interests of today's youth.
Nailed it.
Oh yeah, because they couldn't see below the surface. to see what the story was really about. They were just looking at the image on the cover and a few pages. Nobody at the New York Times or Time Magazine read that comic book. They had no idea what it was. At the same time, the same article mentioned Catwoman, which was written by Mindy Newell. And Mindy, to her blessings, had her name mentioned in print. And so she gets a phone call from her father, who's a heavy hitter Wall Street stockbroker. His company had like 7 stories on some building in Wall Street. Like, Mindy, this is Daddy. I'd like you to have lunch with me today. Come and meet me at the office. So he goes, oh my God, what's this going to be, right? She arrives at the office, rides the elevator up, the doors open, and on the wall opposite the elevator doors is the front page of the New York Times. Below the fold, doesn't matter, with Mindy Newell's name circled in yellow highlighter about 20 times. And she gets a standing ovation. And here comes her father with a giant bouquet of roses, hands them to her and says, honey, I've been on Wall Street for 35 years and I've never had my name in the Times. As long as they spell it right, right?
But I think what I don't like about the where social media is going is that, and again, I think it tended to happen during the last 3 or 4 years, is that there's a lack of charity. People will assume that if they disagree with somebody, it's through malevolence or ignorance of the other person. If there are 2 ways of interpreting somebody's comments, it's sad that often the choice will be to put the worst possible light on the interpretation. And it's that lack of charity that I think, and I think it was just, in fairness, people were shitbored. They were just stuck inside. They were looking for excitement in their life. And this is where it's gone. The reason why I find comic book films, and to some extent, some comics today, kind of tedious, it's not the sort of quote unquote woke culture, so much as that it's just poor storytelling. And I think sometimes the elements that sort of get into the woke culture sometimes are used as a crutch to disguise the fact that the storytelling is not well made. I think I agree with Mike. You can put any subject, any content, any element into any story from any end of the political spectrum, and it's going to work if it's well crafted and if the person who's writing it is not trying to preach a particular message but is trying to explore an idea. And I think that is something that, sadly, at the moment, because of social media, there's this very strong need to be right and to have your opinion be the correct one. And I think that's,
and there's really no we talked about it before with TikTok and music, and you have to have the attention span in 40 seconds. And I think social media is a part of that product where and companies like Marvel and DC now are competing for the low-hanging fruit. They're not investing in bold new directions. They're looking for standard bearers to just, not even good writers, not even good artists, just passable. And every little thing that comes up that's trendy, or everything that someone tells them, oh, this is the hot new thing, they do it, and by the time it comes out, it's already passed. And so they seem more irrelevant.
See, for me, I think it's more along the lines of, with social media goes, is the anonymity of it. You can create a screen name, you can say whatever you want, and there's no consequences. And I think this is really what is, for me anyways, what it's boiled down to is the fact that, you could have your standpoint, you could have your viewpoint, you could say what you want to say, but own what you want to say. But doing it behind a keyboard where you have a screen name that has nothing associated with who you are and what you do.
To
me, that's what it boils down to. Either you stand for what you stand for, or you don't. You don't have to be anonymous to do so.
Right.
And look, there's nothing that's going on today in the culture wars that we didn't see back in the 60s and back in the 70s. And, it's not new. And it's amazing how you go back and look at some of the old material and you go, I mean, have you guys seen recently seen Monty Python and the Life of Brian, and they do that whole thing about, you know, Loretta, you know, and you go, oh my God, you put that on, you put that on.
Impress me.
Yeah, I know. And you seriously, I if anybody listening wants to just experiment, mate, Google the clip on YouTube and then stick it on Facebook and see how long before you cop a 2-week ban for hate speech. Seriously, we those guys were prescient. Honestly, everything they did, I'm seeing it come to life. The point is, they knew it that back then. We knew it back then. I mean, go back to 1984 if you want to. It was written in 48, published in 49. Orwell could see it all. The thing is, I think with Monty Python, they dealt with it the way these things should be, by humor, by sort of teasing the ideas and playing with it. I think we're just taking things too bloody seriously at the moment. But I think there's also human beings just can only be outraged for so long and then they get bored. And I think the humor's coming back into it, and hopefully. And look, the media, the comic companies, they're chasing a dollar. So as soon as the tide turns, they'll swing.
We had the same thing here. I mean, between Archie Bunker and all the family. I mean, even the whole Mama's Family with Carol and the Carol Burnett show. They pushed the envelope on so many levels, and it was comedy. It was fun, and that's the thing. Is, to me, comedy is made to make you think. It's made to make you laugh at things you shouldn't laugh at.
And I think people like to laugh.
But it also makes you think about things
that
maybe you wouldn't have thought about before in any kind of context, let alone humorous.
Yeah. And I think you summed it up before, Mike. It's like if you've got a particular thesis that you want to pursue, that's kind of propaganda. But in your case, it was more about, let's explore this idea and see where it goes. You don't create straw man villains. You create powerful villains that are exciting, that, you know, that you find yourself thinking, okay, as much as I hate this person for their values, there are certain things about them that have me kind of curious to see where they came from and why they've come to these ideas. It's that exploring the idea.
Well, that's what it boils down to, is the storytelling.
Yeah, creativity now and storytelling. This internet age has allowed people to think that it will be their turn to be famous at some point. And they're not trying to actually. Music is a good example. Comics is a good example. They're not trying to create something that will stand the test of time. They're trying to create something that will make them famous.
Yeah.
And they're chasing the wrong thing. They're not chasing the true creative spirit. They're chasing something else that the internet has manifested that makes them think, oh, you know, I'm gonna be the next hot thing or the next big thing. They're not willing to do the work because everything's in that that TikTok length span of 60 seconds or less. No one's willing to write a story that will take 6 issues or a year to unfold, or they're not willing to kind of dig that deep. And I think art, theater, any type of art, creative art, has always been the hold a mirror up to society. And what's happened is that society has sort of broken that mirror, and they all want a piece of it instead of realizing this is a reflection of us.
See, I think a lot of it has to deal with the fact that everybody seems to think that their opinion matters.
Well, true. Yeah. Our biggest problem, and I'll get off the soapbox. Our biggest problem is that we allow.
We got deep on this one.
The dumbest person or the dumbest thing or the least informed is the mark where we begin. Nobody has to reach up anymore. We have to reach down. And I think we need to stop reaching back. It's like people need to catch up. We don't need to slow down and wait for them. And I think that's a bad
we set the bar, but it's very low.
Yeah, but I reckon we're the ones to blame, because kids are just being kids. They don't know what they don't know. I remember when I was 18, 19, I was the most opinionated little shit in the world. And that was, I was being 18. That's my job, and it was to challenge, whatever the status quo was. But at some point, you've got to say, as a 40 and 50 and 60-year-old, I'm older than them by maybe 2 or 3 lifetimes. Maybe they're not, we shouldn't be taking what they say and basing our entire society's values around that. I mean, Indigenous people kind of get it. They say the elders are the ones that we should be listening to. They've got the wisdom of life and experience. Yes, we want a little bit of vitality to come in from youth. That's what youth do really well. And often most people who have been groundbreakers and changes of society did it in their 20s and 30s. Great.
Right.
But for all the geniuses out there that did something magnificent, there were a lot of idiots who would have pulled us all back in the wrong direction. Thank God we do have stability. We need both. We need the young progressives and we need the older people who are a little bit more conservative and traditional, who value those things which have made our society what it is.
Well, I think where I was going was
and
when I
one,
started
one
all
side
this
doesn't.
was more the fact of trying to get there has to be a happy medium somewhere. And that was kind of my point to begin with all this, is the fact that the comics has always been a medium, whether people want to look at them as a serious thing or not. It's always been a medium that is well ahead of its time, where they're asking the questions and making people look at how life is done in a different aspect, a different way.
I mean, what I love about the United States is, sorry.
I was going to say, I think you're right, Scott, because if you take a look at everything that we've seen in entertainment the last 10 years, maybe even more than that.
It was done 25 years ago in comics.
Right. Yeah, it's all based on stuff that we were doing 40 years ago, 50 years ago, right? I mean, some genius in Hollywood thinks that he thought of doing the X-Men, Days of Future Past. Like, really? No.
Yeah.
You got to step into the Wayback Machine, and you have to step in and read that comic book that was printed way back then.
Do you mean the one he read? Do you mean the one he read 40 years ago?
Yeah. True story. Seattle, circa 19, let's say, about 87. Record store. In there for whatever the hell reason I was, and two young girls flipping through the stacks, and one of them holds up an album, The Beatles. It says to her friend, "See, Megan, I told you Paul McCartney was in another band before Wings."
Yeah. I remember you telling me that one. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, sometimes people get so wrapped up in the now and the them that they forget that there's something else.
Don't get me started on music. My daughter all the time comes up and says, "Hey, have you heard this song?" I'm like, "Yeah, I heard it back in '73."
Yeah. or jokes.
They're like, "It just came out last week."
On
like,
the
no,
internet.
it didn't.
I go, yeah, that was hysterical when I was 8 years old.
Well, the real problem is that they're mining things from 30 or 40 years ago to tell the stories of the movies and TV shows they're telling now. And I think our chief complaint here sort of proves this point, that 40 years from now, they won't have anything left to mine, because what's being produced now is not of a standard that is going to be worth mining for the future.
We're going to cycle through.
Well,
we will. There'll be a point where it'll kind of turn, and we'll go back in another direction.
I'm looking at that now, where I get people all the time saying, "Well, this is just a recycled version of that. This is a recycled version of this," but there's a difference between a recycled version and drawing influence from something and telling your own version of it.
Sure.
Ultimate Spider-Man was a great version of it. When Mark Bagley and Bendis were they were retelling Spider-Man. I'll be the first one to tell you, even having a shop, I thought I was like, this is crap. They're just retelling Spider-Man. Then I actually went through and read it. They were telling their version of it. Granted, it was a whole, it started back from the beginning of else, but I got to give it to the guys, Bendis and Bagley. It was a good story. Me being the old curmudgeonly guy looking at it, thinking, "Oh, this isn't my Amazing Spider-Man." I was wrong. But I never gave it the chance to do so. In today's world, it's very hard to come up with something original anymore.
Yeah.
These things cycle. Back in the 50s, movies sort of started to slide as a result of, go back to the Paramount Act, where they split up, the people who are actually making the films and the people who were screening them. And so as a result, at the same time that this was happening, we also had TV sort of taking off, and films started to get bigger and more grandiose. And this was the era of, the Cleopatra, Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor, these big sort of epics. And they just got overblown. The companies all started to go broke. And the salvation was that you got the French New Wave filmmakers coming through, and that spurned New Hollywood, kick-started, spawned New Hollywood. And then the cycle went through again. We had, in the 70s, New Hollywood was firing away, and then suddenly the blockbusters came in with Jaws and the Star Wars. And then we go into the 80s, and then it goes back to the big overblown blockbusters. Mm-hmm. And then that was Tarantino and those guys came in, the Sundance Kids. And then suddenly we go back to sort of smaller, more intimate stories, which are more auteur driven, where people are actually caring about the story rather than the spectacle. And then we're just going through that same cycle again. We're seeing it right now. People are bored shitless with, this has been a disaster year for Hollywood for so many reasons. But basically, they've just got overblown budgets. And when you make the budgets that big, nobody wants to take a risk because they're terrified that they'll blow the dough, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You watch in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see a lot of smaller films coming out, maybe $20, $30 million movies. We're seeing it already. There was one, I can't remember the name of it, but it came out something like Sound of Thunder, Sound of Silence, or something.
With Vin Caviezel. Yeah,
I haven't seen it, but I've heard it was. Yeah, it was a very small budget film.
Budget.
All right, to get away really well. To get away from the other stuff, Mike, we were talking earlier. This gentleman right here was the one that drove here to thinking you were going to be at the shop.
He's here.
There we
go.
So
he joined it on the stream. This is the gentleman I was telling you about earlier who drove all the way from Louisiana thinking you're going to be here at the shop.
Does he have to jump out of a cake?
Oh, want Mike to come to my birthday party. If I have to jump out of a cake, it's going to cost you extra.
It might be worth it.
Especially if I have to wear a bikini.
Claude, you may want to backtrack on the stream because Mike promised something to you, but we'll see if he follows through with it.
There we go.
Yeah, you're going to have to backtrack in order to see what it was.
But yeah, that was the gentleman that drove hours to get here to meet you.
I'm so glad he was able to log in. That's great.
Well, it's been a long night because he's been able to get all the way back home.
Yes, I told you he drove quite a while to get here.
Where are you guys?
It's been a long night for all of us.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you too late. Don't want to keep my wife up too late. This has been fantastic. This has been the most glorious celebration I could imagine. I couldn't think of anyone I would rather spend the night with than you guys.
Eve, I would agree with that.
We got to talk way more often.
We do.
Jeff,
here's to you in 50 years,
buddy. My right hand, my right arm. Yeah, keep
I'm
it
thrilled.
safe and sound.
I'm
And
one of the luckiest guys.
My buddy.
Cheers to you.
My buddy forever.
I love you, man.
All right. I'm going to rescue my wife from the couch where she fell asleep about an hour ago.
So,
cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Everybody tuning in, thank y'all. And Mike, thank you once again for celebrating your 50th anniversary with us.
Thank you for making this possible, Jeff.
Before we leave,
Scott. Sorry.
Before we leave, let's put these up here.
Who the hell are you here?
All right.
Yeah.
Before we leave, let's put these up here one more time. There are 2 prints that are going to be available. You can contact me after the stream. We'll post how to get on here, or we'll make sure that Jeff has them on the Mike Grell page. Like I said, if you're listening to the stream, if you mention that you saw it on the stream, we'll throw you in an extra little prize as well, free of charge. I've drank way too much. I don't know what the hell else is after this. I got to be at
Here's
work
to
at 5
50
in the
more.
morning. So, absolutely. Everybody, thank y'all for listening. Mike, you have any last words to say?
Only to thank everyone who joined us tonight. Every single person, whether you're here, video, chimed in digitally with a message, or you're just here in spirit. I love you guys. You made my whole career, you made my life what it is, which is pretty damn fine. I appreciate it. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.